Hey, in the immortal words of Judy Brown, happiness is a choice. We're happy to spend some time with us, Chip and Zay, on a Tuesday, right here, midday, Texas Sports Unfiltered, taking care of you. It's your show. Feel free to join along in the comments if you're listening and watching on the YouTube channel, and please like and subscribe to the Texas Sports Unfiltered YouTube channel. It's how we grow. Also, please give your love and business to these incredible sponsors around our faces. They make it possible for us to broadcast to you each and every weekday. Well, I said every day because we do post-game, pre-game shows on the weekends. You never know when Texas Sports Unfiltered is going to be bringing you incredible live content. Tell your friends and enemies to download the Texas Sports Unfiltered app. Makes it so easy. You just tap it on your phone, and there we are talking to you. Set an alarm for 2 o'clock Central Time each and every weekday. And if you're listening on the app, please join in on the fun on the Circuit of the Americas CODA text line at 512-222-9328. And Zay, Dwayne Akina is back. He's back. And you know, the guys who make up DBU, not just the 15 guys that Dwayne Akina helped get drafted into the NFL. There were others like Blake Gideon. They call him the godfather of DBU. So he's back. And I think this is a good move. You got a veteran guy who knows exactly what he's doing, knows exactly who he is, knows how to develop players, has a proven track record. And he comes in, he's working with Mark Orphy, who is going to coach cornerbacks, came from Rutgers. And I think this is what you need. You got to have a veteran guy, probably his last job in coaching. He's 68, but he's as fiery as you'll find as an assistant coach. High energy. Your thoughts?
Yeah, young 68, real young 68. And we were talking yesterday about Terry Joseph's departure, obviously him going off to New Orleans, going back to his home state, coaching in the NFL for Kellen Moore, who's trying to get together his coaching staff. But our guy CB, he said Dwayne Akina. And I never thought about it just because, I don't know, Dwayne Akina being the defensive coordinator for Arizona, you would think that would be the next part of his career. So for this move to happen as quickly as it has, I don't even know if Terry Joseph got to pack up all his stuff before Dwayne Akina got the gig. It happened really fast. Clearly, his connection, Dwayne Akina, with Johnny Nansen, linebacker coach, going back to Arizona, that means something. And, of course, Dwayne Akina's time here at Texas, especially when DBU was really popping in the early 2000s, Mac Brown era. He loves university. He loves what he does as a quarterbacks coach, all the guys that he helped put in the National Football League. And I'm right there with you. I think it's a hell of a move. I think just the fact that he gets to come back to a place that he's very familiar with, that he had a lot of success at, is a big thing. And even though he's 68, clearly he's been able to adapt and understand this new era of kids and young men, because it has changed. The game's changed. TikTok wasn't around back when Dwayne Akina was doing things for Texas early on. These kids, they're built differently. And like Steve Sarkisian always says, you don't want to be like the dinosaurs, Chip. Dinosaurs, they adapt, and they got left behind. So Dwayne Akina, he definitely ain't no dinosaur. And him being back at the 40 acres, I think it's a big deal and a really good hire by Steve Sarkisian and crew.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who was an integral part of the golden decade of Texas football from 2000 to 2009. That's when he put the majority of his DBs into the league. Guys like Michael Huff, who said on social media, I owe this man everything. And then, the other first rounders, Michael Griffin, Aaron Ross, Kenny Vaccaro, but all of them said Griffin, Curtis Brown, Shockey Brown, Quandre Diggs, Quentin Jammer, Diggs' older brother, both coached by Akina at Texas. So, the victories that they were a part of, winning a national championship in 2005, playing for another in 2009, he knows what it takes. And I think his family loved it here. And I think they've been looking to work their way back to Austin, honestly. And we saw Akina headed this direction a year ago as an analyst. And then he gets made the defensive coordinator at Arizona. And I think this tells you that this is where his heart is, and he's coming home. And I mean, he's a guy from Hawaii. I love that he worked with Dick Tomey. Dick Tomey, one of the great team builders as coaches in college football history, at one point was the all-time winningest coach at two programs, Hawaii and Arizona, and came to Texas and helped in 2004 with the same kind of culture building as Steve Sarkisian uses in the Culture Wednesdays in the summer. Dick Tomey did this years ago with his players and assistant coaches, getting them to tell their stories to each other so that there's real investment and brotherhood developed, bonds that matter. When you play for each other, it means something. And Dwayne Akina, I talked to several of his former defensive backs, and they told me what was important about the guy. And a lot of them said he values life lessons. He kind of applies life lessons through football. And so it makes you a better player, and it makes you a better man. And I just think, I think this is a really solid move. You knew he needed a veteran coach to come in and oversee the operation, and everybody's on board with it. I'm told Pete Kwiatkowski, Johnny Nansen. So I think this is a fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, his 68 ain't the same as other guys in that age at all. Like, he comes with a different fire, different love of the game. And, his time at Stanford, I'm sure he learned a ton. His time at Arizona, I'm sure he learned a ton still. Like, even though he is 68, he's still a student of the game. And a guy, like I said, that's willing to adapt to different things. Like, it had to click for everyone. Like Johnny Nansen, it had to click for Pete Kwiatkowski, had to click for Mark Orphy, Steve Sarkisian, clearly, to bring in somebody that has that wisdom and experience. That's only but a positive thing. And those guys that are in the locker room right now that are playing in the secondary, they see those guys that came before them. Michael Huff, big part of Jahdae Barron's, career. Jahdae, we all know the video that was out when Jahdae switched numbers and Huffy was handing him the jersey to number 7. So I'm sure Michael Huff, who, again, said on Twitter yesterday, I owe everything to Dwayne Akina, I'm sure he's letting those guys know, hey, this is a huge hire. And I'm not to say that Terrence Joseph or Blake Gideon didn't do their thing, but the skin's on the wall that Dwayne Akina has that means something, man. And I think this most likely be at his last stop. I think he's good with that. Like, he's seen what Texas has been doing. He's seen what Steve Sarkisian has been doing, and he wants to be a part of that. I mean, the dude, was going to be the DC of Arizona? Like, to say,
yeah, he was
yeah,
last season. He replaced Johnny Nansen in that role.
So that's a good gig. Like, you're in the Big 12, you're calling the shots, you're running the show for the defense for the Wildcats, and to say, you know what, Texas is giving me a call, I'm going to answer it and see what they're talking about, and then come back home. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And all those guys, great article that you had on Horns 24/7 where the former players were talking about Dwayne Akina and just the different things that they learned and that he taught them. Like, pretty eye-opening, because people forget Dwayne Akina during his days as a player at Washington, he was a quarterback. So he sees different things from a different perspective as a quarterback when it comes to coaching corners and safeties. And not many guys have that outlook on things. So his ability to be relatable and also call you out, I think it's second to none. And again, all the experience that he has, he's just going to bring it into a really, really good, talented roster. And not only the players are going to get a lot of game from him, but the coaches like PK and Sark, like all those guys. Like, when Dwayne Akina speaks, ears perk up. You listen to that because he's been there and done that. And the respect, it's going to be there from day one. So I'm not going to front. Like, when CB said that yesterday, I had no idea that was even a thought. Like, I was like, Dwayne Akina, that'd be cool, but he's been here already. Will he want to come back and coach corners at this point of his career? And sure as hell enough, here he is back in the building. And I feel like he's going to bring a lot of former players back too, which that's always a positive thing when you see guys that made it in the National Football League that were once in these guys' shoes that are on the current roster, and they're going to be able to come back and give game because someone's familiar in that locker room like Dwayne Akina that they can relate to. That's a big deal. Like, not just Michael Huff, but all of those guys that we named, from Cedric Griffin, Aaron Ross. We know Mike Griff, he's always around stuff of what he does, for the team and how he was with Longhorn Network. But all those things are very positive. I'm very excited because, again, we talked about it yesterday, Chip. Like, Terry Joseph and Blake Gideon, they did a damn good job, especially this last year. Like, them boys were balling. Andrew Makuba, Jade Barron, Mookie Taft, them boys were balling. So to find someone like Dwayne Akina, that's a very big deal, and I'm very excited about him being back at the University of Texas.
Yeah. CB says tell Akina to tell Michael Griffin to pay you.
I ain't never getting that money. I've accepted it. I'm never getting that money, man. Like, again, at least give me half, like the 500, because I'll admit it wasn't the best dunk. It wasn't the cleanest dunk, but the ball went in. My hands were on the rim. It was just ugly. But I would love a Michael Griffin jersey that I can hang up back here. That'd be dope. Hell, give me a Marcus Griffin jersey. I'll take that too. Marcus was way nicer to me anyway. So I might put Marcus's up before I put up Mike's. But Coach Akina, he ain't gonna help me with that money, CB. That ain't never happening.
Well, this is not good.
Oh yeah,
CB says his entire town up there in Washington State has been without power going on 9 hours. God bless.
What's going on, CB? Like,
hang in there.
I know the weather's never good. It's always raining and stuff, but man, hang in there.
Yeah, man. Let's bring him in. He is the managing editor of Horns 247.com. He does it all. Recruiting, team, keeps the motor running. The one and only Hank South of Horns 24/7. How you doing, Hank?
I'm great. How are y'all?
Good, Hank.
Doing great. And Hank, we put a hot board together of candidates for that secondary coaching job replacing Terry Joseph. And actually Hank put it together. But even some of our members were like, because you put Dwayne Akina on there, and even some of our members were like, Akina.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, we did that, but when Blake Gideon took the job at Georgia Tech, and then, obviously Mark Warfy got hired as cornerbacks coach, so then safeties was still open, so we kind of still had the hot board running, but yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. You look, obviously, his track record as a coach, his past at Texas, he was going to join the staff last offseason as a senior analyst, obviously was promoted to the defensive coordinator position at Arizona. So it took a year, but, it did end up happening. But yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I know, everyone's saying, he's an older guy, but, he's still been coached. It's not like he's been out of coaching. He's been a defensive coordinator at a Power 4 level. And, seems like, he hasn't lost a step. So, I think it's huge. I think the reaction has been really positive. Chip, we've put together that awesome story with all the reaction from the past DBs that have played for him, and just the things they've had to say for him. We saw Michael Huff tweet about him, Quandre Diggs saying the GOAT is back, like all these just amazing comments. I just got off the phone with Ryan Palmer a minute ago too, just hearing what he had to say from back in the day about being recruited by Dwayne Akina, and then, learning under him and everything. And just all the positive things he had to say. So I think it's an awesome hire. I think, he's going to do really well. He can recruit. He obviously coach. He has a great group of safeties and defensive backs in general to work with. So I think he's going to probably be really happy to see, that room when he gets to Austin and starts starts putting in the work. But no, I think it's an awesome hire. But yeah, there's a lot of great candidates, but I think he makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always crack up because Michael Huff, and I'm sure he gets sick of me telling this story, but when Huff got to Texas, he was a wiry guy. And Akina told me, man, I don't know if Huffy could have benched 185 7 times when he got here. And now you look at Huff, he's got guns like you can't believe. He wears tank tops every chance he gets. And before Huff started working for Texas and going deep undercover, when he would, talk to people in the media all the time, he was like, man, Dwayne Akina forces you to be physical. And Quandre Diggs said the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's what made Quandre Diggs the most excited. He's like, he forces you to be physical. He forces you to become a great tackler. And that's saying a lot, because we've seen a lot of DBs throw shoulders, get hurdled, and that physicality, you got to have it.
Yeah, especially if you can extend, kind of the trajectory they were on this year. Obviously, Makuba will lay a hit, Taff will lay a hit, but Derek Williams is obviously great in the run game. Being able to learn under him and kind of keep that physicality going and getting more and more. I mean, I think he's gonna do a lot of good things.
Yeah, Hank, like when you think about recruiting with Dwayne Akina, because that's what comes to mind. Again, 68 years old, but it's a different 68. Like 68, probably the new 38 with Dwayne Akina and how he operates. You know what I'm saying? So with recruiting, how do you think his role is going to play? I don't know if he's going to be on the road as much as he maybe used to be, but also he's just one of those guys like, you see it speaks for itself.
Yeah.
The things that he did at Texas, the things that he's done in his career. So it shouldn't be any problem getting these high school kids that have changed. I mentioned the chip since Dwayne Akina has been a Longhorn, but his ability to adapt in this new era of NIL and the transfer portal, how do you think he's going to acclimate to that?
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. I was a little curious, he kind of, it seems like he has that like no nonsense approach, and how is he going to adapt to this NIL era where kids are getting paid a lot of money to come play football in college. Obviously, he's been doing it. It's not like like I said, he's not coming back from the NFL or anything. He's been at the college level. It's probably gonna be a little bit different at Texas now compared to Arizona in terms of NIL deals and all that kind of stuff. But no, I think he'll be fine in terms of on the road. I think he's one of those guys that, obviously I think he's going to be out on the road, but probably doesn't need to be. And in recruiting in general, it feels like it's becoming less and less about like being out on the road as much as possible. There's still obviously evaluation periods and times coaches go out and see them, but the month of December now is all dead. I'm sure the coaching staffs love that. Obviously you have the transfer portal, everything's chaotic, but at least you're not away from your families, as much kind of in the holiday season. With the December being a dead period, go out on the road in January and then again in the spring. But I think he'll be fine. I think obviously, he can kind of sit down with guys. I think he'll probably be a great on-campus recruiter too, just being like, hey, see all these guys on the wall up here? Like, I was here. Like I'm sure he's not going to gloat about it, but coached all these guys. And I think that'll all these kids probably don't know too much about that. Now that we're getting into the generation of kids that don't really remember Vince Young, which is crazy. But still he can talk about a track record. He can talk about, where he's been. He's obviously coached at Stanford for a long time when they had a lot of success, did well at Arizona. No, I think he'll be fine. And again, recruiting, I could be mistaken, but you can, with this unlimited coaching thing now, I'm pretty sure as long as you only have 10 coaches out on the road, you can like cycle through who's going out. Like we saw Chris Gilbert go out on the road. We've seen Brandon Harris go out on the road. So I don't think it's as much like all the 10 on the field assistants have to go be the guys that go on the road. I think you can kind of maneuver it a little bit, especially, when you're hiring a coach who's a little bit older and more veteran, probably don't need to be out as much.
Yeah. Hank, we've got, the coaches are back from vacation. So, well, first of all, give us your thoughts on the new staff.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty settled now.
Yeah, it seemed like, it's crazy because, last Thursday, Texas put out that update, Terry Joseph to safeties and, passing game coordinator. And then, so you never know what's going to happen. I would imagine, we're pretty much set now. But no, I think, the more I didn't really know anything about Chad Scott, to be honest, before he was hired. As I've talked to recruits, as we've seen, like, for example, he's already gotten Xavier Crowell on the phone, one of the top running backs in the country, who canceled his official visit after Choice left. Got him on the phone, got him to reschedule his official visit back on for June 6th through 8th. I saw him last night. Crowell was quote tweeting Chad Scott last night. So it seems like he's really, hit it off with him. KJ Edwards, a top 100 running back. He spoke with him. He still has an official visit set. So it seems like kids really do like him. I talked to one parent who said he reminds me a lot of Tashard Choice. So, that's a good thing. But no, he was at West Virginia for a while. I think that goes to show, obviously had the interim coach for a little bit after Neil Brown. So it goes to show he's very well respected. I think, he's, from what I've seen so far, from the recruiting perspective, it sounds like he's doing well. I know there's some discussion about Javian Osborne. They haven't reached out to him as much. He canceled his official visit. I actually talked to him today. He spoke to Sark yesterday. He hasn't talked to Chad Scott yet. So, I think, again, we're in February. Kids, there's plenty of time left. I think kids, relationships can kind of be fixed, or things can be smoothed over, whatever it is, with the amount of time left. So we'll keep an eye on Osborne, but Xavier Crowell, KJ Edwards, some other guys, they're going to recruit at that running back position. And then Mark Orphy, seemed, again, another kind of outside the box hire. I don't think he was on anybody's hot board until a little bit later in the hiring process after Gideon left, but well respected. I didn't realize, and when I was covering Alabama, he was at Alabama in 2021 as an analyst. So I reached out to some of my old, players I covered there, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Jalen Armour Davis, guys that have been drafted. They said nothing but good things about him. So they really liked him. Obviously, he was an analyst, so it wasn't on the field, but positive things to say there, and obviously had success at Rutgers as well. So, we saw him put an offer out last night to a new cornerback, and the name's escaping me at the top of my head, but Samari Matthews. So he put out, I think it's one of his first offers he's put out, 4-star cornerback. He said in an official visit for June 13th. So he's already kind of making his presence known on the recruiting trail. Obviously has the ties to North Shore, a school I'm sure Texas would love to have more ends at, as many ends as they can at in the Houston area with the talent they put out. So I think good hires, and obviously all the personnel moves as well. Aaron Joe, the new director of scouting, and then Josh Dunson from Memphis. So they're putting together a really nice staff. As college football becomes more kind of a professional sport, really more mirroring the NFL, you need to have these people in place, and I think Sark's getting the best ones.
Well, the Xavier Crowell, how do we pronounce his name?
I think just Crowell.
Okay, Crowell.
Yeah.
He had put out, a post on social media saying after Choice got fired, canceling my visit to Texas. Yeah. So it was, one conversation with Chad Scott that got him back to visiting Texas.
Yeah. And the early feedback I got was nobody knew who he was. That's no slight to him. I think you're probably a little bit more sheltered at West Virginia than you are at a bigger program. No, Choice got. I think you accidentally said Choice got fired. He got
sorry.
Lions job.
Yeah, when Choice left to go to the Lions.
So I think it's just a matter of, kids getting to meet him. Obviously we're still in a dead period. So, once these kids get on visits, I think things are going to be fine. I think, it's going to pick up. Everyone has good things to say about him. So at the end of the day, it's the University of Texas. There's a lot that the program can offer in terms of resources and just status and NIL and everything beyond just your position, coach. Not any slight to the coaches. It's still I know Sark loves to pitch. It's a relationship based operation. How they recruit, which is true. But it's still, plenty to offer as a program.
Hank, with Chad Scott coming from West Virginia, now to Texas to be the running back coach, the name of Jaheim White has been, just thrown out there a little bit. And you think about Texas' current running back room, you got C.J. Baxter, Christian Clark, both coming from injury. Expect big things from Jared Gibson and Contravion Wisner. And, obviously the freshmen who are, in the building right now, James Simon and Ricky Stewart, they're also in the building. Is that a thing? Jaheim White possibly, coming over to Texas and his running backs coach left. I don't know what Chad Scott and Jaheim White relationship is still, but do you think that's a possibility, or do you think Sark and the rest of the coaching staff are like, we're pretty thick in the running back room as it is. Let's stick it out with these guys? Because you never know. We saw what happened last year with C.J. Baxter going out, and as good as Contravion Wisner was, we know that Jaden Blue was up and down. The running back room still could have been better at times.
Yeah, 100%. So it's hard to say because he's not, obviously the portal window's not open. So I do know he did an interview saying he came back to West Virginia solely because of Chad Scott. So you would think, if he does decide in the spring he wants to make a change, or, he still wants to play for Chad Scott, I can't imagine any team would not entertain that idea. He's like an elite version. He's pretty much Keelan Robinson, Silas Bolden. I mean, not more so Keelan. He's that version of the player that Texas seems to, really love to have. One of those kind of those kind of scat back weapon types. Like I think he's like 5'8", 190, but really good numbers. So yeah, I'll be curious to see. We're already seeing kids say they're intending to enter the portal in the spring. I just saw Tennessee had a starting cornerback that just announced that he's going to go into the portal once it opens in the spring. And of course, it's not intra-conference, Big 12 SEC. So if he decided to make a move, I would imagine Texas would entertain it. I think running back is a spot they probably would like to look at. Just like you said, the injuries from last year, CJ Baxter's coming back from a pretty significant injury. You don't know how effective he's going to be in the early going. Same with, Christian Clark. We've never really seen him at the college level, but, he's coming back from a pretty significant injury as well. And then after that, you got Wisner in terms of a full season's load. Gibson came in at times, but, hasn't, been the go-to guy. So I think running back is certainly an area they'd look at. That wide receiver, I think, the more playmakers they can get into the fold to help with Arch Manning, I think they would certainly entertain.
Yeah, Jaheim White at West Virginia. In 2 seasons at West Virginia, 6.6 yards per carry, and has 257 carries. So it's not like he's, only getting 10 carries with that average. He's a slippery. He's a slippery.
Think about that, like in the return game too. Like you're losing Silas Bolden, who gave everyone heart attacks on punt return every time.
Good and bad.
Good and bad. Kick return, Golden was on, So, just in special teams too, he could probably, again, this is all speculation. He's not in the portal. But I think any school, if he did enter the portal, would be interested in him.
Yeah. What do recruits care about the spring game? I know it's typically been a good visit.
Yeah.
Time.
I don't think it's a huge deal in terms of recruiting. Because the spring game's kind of like a game, where the coaching staff's pretty busy. They have a lot of guys come in. They want to have them experience the atmosphere, and it's not necessarily more one-on-one time. So, I don't think it's a huge deal in terms of recruiting. So I will be curious to see if they replace that with anything. Typically they do like the Longhorn City Limits recruiting event like 2 weeks prior to the Orange-White game. So I'd imagine that's still going to be on. I haven't heard of a date for that yet. And then, if they are going to do this kind of fan day, maybe that's another opportunity they try to use to bring kids on campus. But it seems like, the big recruiting weekends nowadays on the calendar are those June official visits. That's like, when everyone vies to get those guys on campus, and then you have your big July, August commitment season prior to the football season.
Hank, talk a little bit about Mark Bowman, number 1 tight end in the nation. He's talked about his official visit for Texas, and that's scheduled that. Talk about him a little bit and what kind of player he is. Yeah,
so just to put into context how highly he's thought of, he was 2027. So he's supposed to be going into his junior year. I think do I have that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
He reclassified, he's 2026. He's still considered the number 1 tight end in the country. And we've seen these reclasses. It happened with Zalis Hicks. It happened with Xavier Crowell. They've been one of their top recruits in their class, and once they reclass, they're just considered 24/7. Like 24/7 Sports has just had them as a 4-star. They're not even in the top 247. To whether you agree or disagree. Mark Bowman did that, and he's still the number 1 tight end in the country, number 30 overall player in the country. So big time talent from Mater Dei. Obviously, Texas loves to get guys from Mater Dei. They got Brandon Baker. They got other guys they're going after, Caden Dixon Wyatt in the 2026 class, Sean Scott, and edge rusher. So there's probably 4 or 5 kids on that roster that have a Texas offer and are, pretty big targets. So he has his official visit scheduled for June 6th to Texas. So they'll have him that first weekend. Then obviously you're going to have to fend off. I think he has Georgia. Let me see his other ones real quick. I think he has Georgia and Oregon are the other ones, if I'm not mistaken. Georgia June 13th and Oregon June 20th. So maybe a 3-team race kind of setting up for Mark Bowman. But obviously, you got Spencer Shannon, a tight end from Mater Dei, that's probably going to, have a pretty big role this year for Texas. Can they sell Mark Bowman on that? So yeah, it's probably a pretty big year for tight end. You don't have a ton of depth there, depending on if you go in the portal. So I think that's, makes sense. He's still the top target at the tight end position. They have another guy coming in from Anaheim, and his name has escaped me, but I have it on my list, named Luke Sorensen, who's a 3-star tight end from California. So they're like these California tight ends. So he'll be coming in for a June 20th official visit. And right now, I mean, those two and Hezzy Kent, who's actually like rated as an offensive tackle, I think he's like pushing 300 pounds. He's being recruited as a tight end, which is, jumbo athlete. Yeah, he's 6'5", 300, getting recruited as a tight end. I think by most schools too. It's not just Texas. So, obviously he would serve as kind of your inline blocker. Yeah, so those are kind of the 3 guys right now. Oh, and then Caden Prothro as well from Georgia. So there's like 4 tight ends they really like right now. I would imagine we'll see that number grow in the spring when they get out and do some evals in person. But that's kind of where we're at with tight end recruiting.
Hank, Vic Schaefer made it out to see Aaliyah Chavez, the nation's #1 recruit, during that 8-day bye week last week. Aaliyah Chavez leading her team to a playoff win. Now they're in the state semifinals.
Yeah,
I guess. And it sounds like Texas and Texas Tech. I know Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Cody Campbell's going to throw all the money in the world at her to keep her in Lubbock. But what'd you make of that?
Yeah. Big deal. And so she play, I think the max preps keeps changing, but to my understanding, they play tonight against Memorial at Hardin-Simmons University to go to the state finals this weekend in San Antonio. So I'm gonna, we'll see if she makes it. I'm gonna try to, if Monterey gets to the finals of the Alamo Dome, I'm gonna try to go down there because it'd be nice to get an interview from her. She's and I'm sure her phone she probably gets 200 calls a day. It's hard to reach her right now. Obviously, she's busy. She's trying to win a state championship. But yeah, I mean, Vic Schaefer went to go see her on Friday night. Both Texas basketball teams kind of had a extended break in season, so do some recruiting. But at this point, I think she's kind of just waiting. Obviously, she's not going to make a decision this week or anything. But she seems like she's just content with waiting until kind of the spring signing period, if not, past that. I heard one source said she kind of wanted to be the last to commit. So, you would imagine that's going to probably go into April. But yeah, Texas Tech right there. It's interesting. Like you would think if she was going to go to Texas Tech, like she would have already committed just because, if you commit somewhere else and you're in Lubbock, I don't know if you there's pressure or like people upset. You spend the whole season in Lubbock in your senior years. I don't know. That's just me thinking out loud. But yeah, no, I think there's confidence around Texas, but they're not taking anything for granted. Like they have she's top priority. They're pushing for her as hard as anybody else. But it does seem like those two have kind of separated themselves a little bit. I know LSU. They say they kind of dropped out for her. South Carolina is still involved for her, obviously being one of the premier programs. So, if Texas keeps doing what they're doing, I feel like they have a pretty good case to get her. So hopefully, maybe we'll get some quotes from her in terms of where things really stand. It'd be great, if she does win the state championship because she'll be in a good mood and she'll want to do an interview. But if she loses, that might be rough. But we'll see. Hopefully she gets there. We'll see tonight.
You're right about that. I mean, her hometown they want her so bad. And if she's thinking at all about going somewhere else, the longer she waits, the better.
Right.
Because that just shortens the time until she leaves town to go to her new school. So good stuff, man. Zay, you got one more?
Yeah, Hank, we've heard some good things about KJ Lacey early on. Of him being one of the early enrollees. Again, just how you think KJ Lacey is going to do. Obviously, probably being the third string guy after Arch and then Trey Owens. But I'm sure he knew that this was a part of the process when he committed to Texas and signed coming from Alabama.
Yeah, I think it says something about the kids that like they come in, like you just said, commit to the process. You know, you're not going to be the starter at least for a year or two, but you're willing to go in and learn, get developed under Sark. Because in this day and age, 2 years under Sark with your resume, if you're not the starter in 2 years, somebody will come give you a starting job from somewhere like that. That's just the reality of the whole situation. But no, I mean, I think KJ, he's a 3-year starter at Saraland. He won the state championship as a sophomore, did huge things as a junior. He took the team to the state championship both years, junior and senior. I think, senior as well. Won Mr. Football in the state of Alabama, which, obviously a talent-rich state. All the returns I've heard on him have been positive so far. I talked to someone close to him saying he already, I think his goal is to put on like 10 or 15 pounds this offseason. He's already put on like 5 pounds since he's been in the weight program. And I've always said this about KJ. It's like, he's not going to like blow you away with his measurables. Like, he's not the fastest. He's not this like athletic specimen. He's just a really good game. Like, he's just, when he's playing in the game, he's just a gamer. Like, he just doesn't mess up. He does, he puts the ball where it needs to be. He's not going to turn it over very often. He's very coachable. So I think that's his biggest asset. And then obviously, now that he's in the program, I think we'll see kind of, the strength and conditioning aspect of it all come into play. Not to say Saraland's like pretty much a college program in coastal Alabama. Their stadium is insane. Got to go see him play 2 years ago against a really good St. Paul's team. But no, I think he's going to be good. I think he's, I think he's very talented third string quarterback. So, I'll be curious to see, excited to see how he progresses over the next couple of years.
Hank, great stuff, man. We look forward to it every Tuesday. Keep up the great work at Horns 24/7, and let's do it again next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you, Hank.
Yep.
Hank South. Follow him on the Twitters at Hank South 247. And of course, over at horns247.com. Chris Hummer will join us here momentarily. But yeah, if you watch this Texas women's game last night, Texas at Georgia, it was setting basketball back 100 years in the first half. This was a 20-16 game, 22-16 in the first half. Texas won the game 57-26. And Zay, I didn't understand the substitution because it was like Vic was determined to play Rory, Shea Holly, Jack Mwenentanda, Maddie Booker, and Taylor Jones as many minutes as possible. 4 of them had over 30 minutes of action. And here I was asking yesterday about how many minutes is Bree Preston going to get? How many minutes is Jordan Lee going to get after they were the catalysts in getting that LSU game turned around? And they barely played. The youngins barely played. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, it's a little bit odd. I mean, I don't want to put anything on Vic Schaefer. I'm sure he has obviously something up his sleeve by playing Shea Holly and Mwenentanda all those minutes. And maybe it's just to get their confidence back. Like, when you're going to Athens, you probably have a 98% chance of winning whatever team you put out there. So you want to get these girls who have struggled a little bit, you want to get them back and having a lot of confidence because you're going to need them once March Madness comes around. So ugly game. Madison Booker only had 7 points. That's very odd for her, going 3 for 11. But that defense, man, it's filthy. That's I don't know how you deal with the defense when they're on one like they were last night. And that's why you saw those Lady Bulldogs only put up 26 points. Very impressive showing. And yeah, let's see what these girls continue to do, which anything but a national championship, it would be a failed season.
Yeah, that was their first game as number 1 in 21 years. So let's bring in the man, Chris Hummer, national college football writer and portal expert for 24/7 Sports. Hummer, how you doing?
What's up? What's up? Doing good.
I was glad to hear that you got some time away last week. You look refreshed.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Got a haircut. Vibes are good.
Yeah.
Are good. I need to shave, but like I look like I'm 12 either way, so I think it's nice.
Yeah.
I like the scruff, man. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Trying to be like you, Zach. Trying to be like
hey,
you.
man, I do my thing.
Yeah, if I grow out scruff, it's white, so we don't need that.
Just a
Hummer,
wise
that's right.
veteranship. Just a wise.
That's right.
veteran.
Looked like Obi-Wan Kenobi or something.
Hey, looking like you and McGregor ain't the worst thing in the world if that's where you want to go. I don't know about which Obi-Wan you're talking about, but
yeah. Well, Hummer, I don't know how much you've been paying attention to what's going on in New Orleans. Do you have thoughts about the SEC Big Ten changing how college football operates?
I think it's inevitable that the SEC and the Big Ten were going to flex their muscles. It tends in life, you so infrequently see somebody with power not eventually flex that power to their own personal benefit. And that's what we're seeing. I don't love the idea of auto bids. I think it's kind of unnecessary because most years the SEC and the Big Ten are going to get 4 in no matter what. And I really don't like the idea of we have a season in the SEC where things go really wrong at the top of the conference. You only really have 1 or 2 deserving teams to put like an 8-4 team in the playoff just because they're in the SEC and have that SEC logo. I don't think it's a competitive way of doing it. It's the same reason. I mean, this is a soccer reference. I don't know if people remember the idea of the Super League that flamed out very quickly, where you essentially took away access to the top leagues except for the best teams. It reminds me of that. I think it's anti-competitive, but at the end of the day, like the SEC and the Big Ten have all the leverage. They've clearly decided to work together to exercise that leverage, and I think that's what's going to eventually happen.
What does this mean, Hummer, for ACC, Big 12, Group of 5 schools? Like, what can they do with Big 10 and SEC just basically bullying everybody and just being like, yo, y'all have no say. We're calling the shots here. Deal with it.
Not a lot. I mean, honestly, like the problem for those leagues is I'm sure the television partners would be just fine if like the SEC and the Big Ten took their ball and went home. Because I don't mean this as a dismissive thing, but like if you look at the Big 12, other than Colorado when Deion Sanders is there, like what team, if you're a national broadcast network, are you going to miss if they're not involved in your television package? And I grew up watching the Big 12, like Texas Tech, TCU, Baylor, Oklahoma State, like Kansas State. These are teams that mean something to me, but to the majority of Americans, not really. You have more national brands in the ACC. There are a couple schools that matter there and draw eyeballs, but I don't think either television partner, be it Fox or ESPN, would be upset if it became a Big Ten SEC invitational. So it's not like the Big 12 and the ACC have much leverage. So I think you got to kind of take it a little bit right now. And maybe I'm missing a creative solution to save the day. If you want to get rid of those auto bids, I would push back as much as I could. But at the end of the day, you're kind of at the whims of the Big Ten and the SEC because they control your destiny in this format because they can do it without you. Do I think it would be healthy for the sport for them to? No. Do I think that's probably what's holding the SEC and the Big Ten back from doing that to a degree? Yes. But that's not going to stop them in the intermediate from taking advantage of the already strong position they have.
Yeah. Yeah. Oklahoma State it was a bad time to take a swan dive and go 3-9. And what? They lost their last 9? Hummer,
Yep.
What have we Zay and I were talking about this the other day because it was just so out of character. I mean, we expect Gundy to lose to OU. That's what he does, but go 3-9. And have you gotten a little pulse on what happened?
I think it was a number of decisions and then just decisions that happened before the season. Mike Gundy's always been a stubborn guy and a loyal guy. I don't think he necessarily made the staff changes he needed to over the years. I don't think he made the personnel changes he needed to. Going into the season with Alan Bowman as your starting quarterback, I think was a huge mistake. He's somebody that limits the ceiling of your offense. And I think even players on his roster knew that. I know behind the scenes, there are some players hoping that Garrett Rangel might beat out Alan Bowman just because you open up different route trees when you can actually throw the ball to the third level. I think sticking with Brian Nardo after that first season was also a mistake. You could say that's just 2020 hindsight, but he had one of the worst defenses in the FBS in 2023. You took a guy from the Division II level, an experiment that clearly didn't go well the first time, and he didn't pivot off of it then. But also, like, at the end of the day, like, losing wears on you. And it just feels like I know they don't have the wagon in Stillwater. That's their neighbors over in Norman, but it feels like the wheels came off the wagon a little bit. It's tough to keep losing and expect to be competitive.
Yeah. I mean, he's had a ton of assistant coaches who've gone on to do really good things, but he flamed out. There's no doubt about that.
And honestly, like, Mike Gundy's, I think, had 2 losing seasons since 2005, right? Like,
right.
Wouldn't shock me at all to see them go 8-4, 9-3 next year. Like, I wouldn't count out Mike Gundy, but he had to make changes, and some of those changes finally got made.
Hummer, they're talking about a third party patrolling the cap, if you will.
The clearinghouse.
The clearinghouse. What's your read on that? They're trying to get some kind of grasp on this NIL money beyond the rev share. It sounds like Brian Kelly, who went and listened to some of the conversation, came away feeling like there's hope. What's your sense of this?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I knew exactly how it was going to work or exactly how it was going to play out. My general sense is in college football, the rules will be pushed as much as possible. It's always been that way. They will run right up to that line and they'll put their toe over the line as much as they can. And it's going to be on whatever enforcement mechanism that is. And it's a clearinghouse. I think I'm trying to remember the firm that's going to handle the economics behind that, but people are going to push it as much as possible. And I think determining fair market value and getting everybody on board of what that looks like is going to be very difficult. It might sound good in practice, but as soon as you might lose your starting cornerback because his deal is said to be not fair market value and you could lose him to a rival school, like, you get pretty upset with the enforcement mechanism. It's the same reason why the NCAA's enforcement mechanism is broken. A school like Tennessee can agree to the rules, and then as soon as it's not convenient for them, for their starting quarterback to sign, they sue the NCAA and essentially destroy any enforcement mechanism possible in the sport. And it's not just Tennessee, like any school in a similar situation would have done the same. But these schools are all really competitive, and I have a really hard time believing the enforcement mechanism will totally handle that side of things. It'll probably help, but there has to be respect and acknowledgement of the enforcement mechanism for it to really go through. And I just don't know what leverage the NCAA really has to push that forward in this era.
Hummer, this 2025 Texas football team, the coaching staff is going to look a lot different than it did in 2024. You bring over Mark Orphy, Dwayne Akina gets signed yesterday. You bring over Chad Scott to replace Tashard Choice as your running back coach. Talk about, in your opinion, these moves and how it's going to affect this team going into this upcoming season.
I mean, I think it affects it. Like, obviously, Tashard Choice has developed into one of the best recruiters in the country, and obviously his production at running back speaks for itself in the time he's been on campus. we're already seeing the effects of that on the recruiting trail. Texas was in a heavyweight fight with Michigan for a running back that it's probably trending in the wrong direction for, with Tashard Choice leaving. Mark Orfrey is somebody that is really well respected. He's actually very close with Texas's former defensive coordinator, who's now over at Nevada as the head coach. He worked under him for a long time. I think he'll be a really good hire for Texas. Chad Scott is somebody that I know engenders a ton of loyalty and a ton of respect at West Virginia. I know for a fact, like somebody like Jaheim White, their star running back, only stayed at West Virginia in part because of Chad Scott. He's somebody with a good reputation. Dwayne Akina is obviously Dwayne Akina. Texas wouldn't have the moniker of DBU, or at least claim it, without Dwayne Akina. Do I know what that looks like in 2024 compared to like 2007? I don't, but he's somebody that Texas wanted to bring in last offseason from Arizona, and they got that done now. But at the end of the day, like both coordinators are still on campus. Steve Sarkisian is still on campus. One of the most talented rosters in America is still on campus. Like you have to be able to weather assistant coach changes, and I think this is very weatherable by Texas.
Yeah. What stands out to you, Hummer, as you kind of size up the state of spring football games in college football? USC not going to have one. Texas not going to have one. Nebraska not going to have one. Is Ohio State also
not going to have one? Florida State's not going to have one. NC State's not going to have one. I definitely think there's more teams coming that are not going to have them either.
How much of that is other teams eyeballing your talent with the spring portal window happening from April 16th to 25th?
I think it's a decent amount of it. We've talked about this before, and obviously I said it was soft of Matt Rule to cancel it for that reason. And part of me still feels that way. But I mean, it is a reality that like if you have a nationally televised game, people are going to turn on the tape and try to take advantage of your roster wherever you can. I just kind of think it sucks. I don't want to not everybody's stories like this, but like it's a cool thing, like as a parent, to get to take your kid to a free spring game. Like I live like 20 minutes from DKR. I'm fortunate I cover these games for a living. I don't pay for tickets, but like I have friends that do, and like some of them can afford to go. But like if you go to DKR with a family of 4, ticket fees online on StubHub, if you're not a season ticket donator, you're probably talking like $100 a ticket. You buy a couple sodas, you buy some food. It's another $100. It's going to cost you $50 to park. It's like a $500, $600 day for a family of 4. The spring game is great because you can go for free. Your family can go see the product they love. They can touch the team. Basically, it's right there. You don't pay a dime. You get to interact with the rest of the community. And I think you lose a lot of that when you don't have a spring game. And I think the sport loses a lot of that when these cancelizations happen. And I just hope that Texas figures out a way via a fan event of some sort to help replicate that. And same with a lot of these other schools. But at the end of the day, this is a business and schools are protecting their business interest.
What would you recommend to substitute that, Hummer? Because I said yesterday, like maybe have a little mini combine type situation where you could just see the players out there go through different drills, kind of like what we're going to see this week at the NFL Combine 40 times, let the quarterbacks sling it around a little bit. Like, is there anything in your mind that could replace those guys just clobbering each other in that exhibition type game, which I don't know what Sark's thinking of, but clearly with the schedule that they had this past season, playing 16, 17 games, he saw it more as a negative than a positive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think you got to do something, and I think a combine of sorts would be interesting. I would probably, if I was looking for one event to replace it, I would probably do something like the NFL does with the Pro Bowl, and do a bunch of just essentially like football games for the public. Do it in the stadium. You don't have to be in pads, but like give the mic to the fan, like give the mic to the players, let them show off their personalities during these things. Maybe bring the fans on the field for a couple of them, or at least the kids, and engage the community that way. Personally, just in my opinion, like if you're going to do OTA style practices anyway, like open up the practices. This, like, the NFL is open. Like, practices are open in the NFL for the most part. It's not treated like a state secret for every like play of the playbook. And I think if fan engagement becomes a real problem, schools have to think about opening up practices, because like, I think part of the rules were because coaches are secretive, but part of the rules is they were trying to protect players who are amateurs, but these guys aren't amateurs anymore. Like, every single player on Texas's roster that's a scholarship player probably makes more than the average American at this point, given what the roster distributions are going to be with rev share. Like, these are professional athletes, and frankly, I don't see a problem with having 1,000 fans show up to watch an open practice at DKR. Like, I think it would be healthy.
Hummer, the NFL Combine gets going here in a couple days. We learned Quinn Ewers had an oblique injury that he suffered against Michigan. Seems like we always get injury news after the fact with Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns. But yeah, report out that Quinn Ewers suffered the oblique injury against Michigan, aggravated it against UTSA, and battled through. Does that information help Quinn Ewers, and what are you expecting from him at the Combine this weekend?
I mean, I don't know if it helps Quinn Ewers. I think anybody with a pair of eyeballs that watched Quinn after the Michigan game, like, saw that Quinn wasn't okay. Like, obviously he suffered the serious injury against UTSA, but like, it doesn't really, if you watch the tape, like, he was clearly playing through something the whole year. It's not a surprise. And I would hope that NFL teams also aren't surprised by that. If Quinn Ewers is healthy, he's a dynamic thrower of the football. I think we all know that. He's one of the most naturally gifted passers I've ever seen in terms of the ability for the ball to come off his hands. And if he's healthy, I think he could have a really strong showing at the Combine. To me, it's just a matter of like how NFL teams square essentially what is like 2 really strong games of tape, his senior, I guess, redshirt junior season versus a lot of inconsistent tape, and like what you take is real. Because if you go turn on what he did in 2023, especially down the stretch, or especially against a team like Alabama, it was really impressive. I think a lot of it will come down to how Quinn Ewers interviews. I think a lot of it will come down to how his medical testing goes. I think that's important as well for him with the recovery from the oblique injury. But it's a really weak quarterback class. And frankly, like, I don't think there's a huge amount of separation between Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward and Quinn Ewers, at least from a natural talent standpoint and a production standpoint. I understand the affinity for the other two. They both move better out of the pocket, particularly Cam Ward, than Quinn Ewers does. Quinn's more limited in that way. But I think if you put Quinn in a timing-based system, a system where he just hits his drop and gets the ball out, he could be very successful. So this is going to be a year where that third or fourth quarterback is very system dependent and team dependent. And if the right the right team zeroes in on Quinn Ewers, I think he can go a little higher than people anticipate, but he has to hope that he impresses the team enough to get to those heights.
Yeah. What player from this Texas team that will be at the Combine do you think is going to be a steal, Hummer? Like, we know Jahdae Barrett, it seems like he keeps moving up. You know, obviously Quinn Ewers, Matthew Golden, just to name a few. But is there anybody specifically that you could see that might not be getting the headlines like some of the other players, but having a very long, lengthy NFL career?
Vernon Brodden.
Yeah.
I think of both defensive tackles, but I think Alfred's a little more hyped coming in, just given his recruiting pedigree. But you talk about Vernon Brodden, somebody I think can play multiple positions on the inside for you. I think he's just going to be a really steady player for a very long time with more athletic upside than you might think. I think he was like a 4.7 short shuttle guy out of high school, if I remember correctly.
Nice.
Yeah. Got that stuff locked
There you
away.
go, Hummer, pulling out the Vernon Broughton short shuttle out of high school.
Thanks, man. I remember him being an athlete I was really impressed by in the 2020 class.
Let's go.
I don't think he gets the attention that a lot of the other Texas players do, but I think Vernon Broughton is a guy that I have no idea where he's going to fall on a draft board. Probably day 3, I would imagine. Maybe day two, things go right. But he's just somebody I can see having a long career in the NFL by being a quality rotation piece.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
Yeah.
I made the case yesterday, Hummer, that Makuba could be the best safety in this draft. I know MORE at South Carolina is big and beastly at 6'3", 227. He's probably going to run
That
crazy.
is a big dude. That is a really big safety. Like,
And they're saying he could run sub 4.4, which is just going to make NFL teams go boing. But Makuba, that guy sees the game. He closes. He runs the alley. He hits. Love me some Andrew Makuba. This PSA brought to you by.
Yeah, great player. I'd be curious how Makuba's going to test. I don't remember everything. I'm looking back through his like high school stuff to see what he ran in track and stuff, and obviously that changes over time. And I don't see any like easily able to find 100-meter times or anything like that. But Makuba's clearly on the smaller side for safety. Yeah. I'll be interested. He's somebody that I think like, I don't want to make assumptions. He's obviously made a career out of being a very successful, strong safety, but he's got the size of a nickel. I don't know if he's fast enough to play it in the league, but he definitely brings some versatility. And you're right, Chip. He sees the game unbelievably well. So I think he could be somebody that has a long career as well.
What do you think of Cam Williams?
I think he's got the frame that everybody loves, but I think still has a lot of developing to do.
Yeah.
Should he have stayed, Hummer?
I think Cam Williams is the type of guy, if he stayed and then had a really good year, could have been a top 15 pick. Maybe he will be anyway if teams fall in love with his athletic profile. But who am I to tell a guy who's probably going to be a day one or day two pick not to go to the league? But he does. Cam Williams did strike me as a guy that if he came back, he could have really, really helped his stock. But at the end of the day, like they don't make a lot of humans that move like Cam Williams does at his size. So he could end up going quite high.
I think he was done playing school.
Oh my gosh. Get him a tutor. Hey, good grief.
Byron Murphy wasn't crazy about, going to class, and he got paid. So
honestly, I don't think this is going to happen anytime soon. I'd be very curious if in 10 or 15 years, some of these guys get to opt out of playing school if they want to, given the way the sport's headed. But for now, you still gotta go to class.
Yeah, even if they're online, Hummer, what are you anticipating craziness this spring in the portal? With
I hope not for my sake, but
yeah.
No. Maybe I'm wrong. It's too early. I've not started calling around teams to see what it's going to be like yet. We're still more than a month and a half away, but I think the quote that always resonates with me, this was a SEC GM told me, in the winter you trade starters, and in the spring you trade backups. So I think that's a really good way to think about the spring cycle. It's just going to be a lot of depth pieces moving around. That's not to say there aren't starting quality players, like Dominic Williams, for example, who went to Oklahoma out of the portal last year from TCU, is that type of player. You're probably going to see a quarterback or two shake loose from a quarterback competition. I'm watching Alabama specifically in that regard. And there are one or two programs out there that could still use a quarterback, like North Carolina. But other than teams like needing an offensive tackle to fill in here, a defensive tackle here, a receiver here, I just don't think you're going to see the volume we did in the winter, especially after I think we had 3,100 players go in the portal during the fall window, which was a record. So I'm sure we see another 700 or 800 in the spring, but I think it'll be a lot of backups who are upset with their roles. And I know we talk about teams being worried about people watching their spring game and seeing who's at the top of the depth chart and who they can maybe poach. I think a lot of coaches don't want to have spring practice, full out spring practice, because they don't want to distribute reps the way they mean to. Because if you distribute reps the way you mean to come the fall, you risk pissing off a player second on the depth chart who's willing to leave. And I actually think that plays a bigger role than teams coming poaching. I just don't think coaches want their players to know exactly where they stand in the depth chart. So that's something to consider there.
Interesting. Hummer, are you getting blowback? I mean, what's the sense of going to the 105 scholarship football players and kind of eliminating walk-ons or whatever?
Well, I mean, the SEC is still at 85 this year. That was the ruling from the SEC office, essentially. So I don't think much is changing in that regard. 20 walk-ons is less than teams have had before. I don't think anybody's really thrilled about it. But given how much schools are having to spend on their revenue sharing, I think it's just the reality. It'll be interesting to see moving forward what happens with that. Because I did a story, I feel like 2 weeks ago, maybe last week, where I looked at the amount P4 who transferred. 0% of first team all conference players from the Power 4 transferred in the winter, and 67% of first team all conference players from the G5 transferred during the winter. And I think if you give the P4 additional scholarships, what you're going to see is just a lot of P4 teams continuing to pick G5 rosters apart. But for now, with it sticking at 85, I don't really think there's much of a change, at least this coming season.
So hard cap at 105 total.
Yep. And I think there's a stipulation that leading up to fall camp, you can have more on your roster. I would have to double check that. There was discussions of that when that was all happening, essentially to get through the off season. But when it comes to like week 1 of the season, 105 hard cap.
Man. Yeah, it's interesting. Zay, you got one more?
Yeah, I do. You know, Hummer, I'm a very petty guy. Love me a good Aggie joke. Love me a good Sooner joke. Kirby Smart trashing Johnny Manziel at this Nike coaching clinic, saying, what's he the champion of? Champion of Fireball. Where the hell did that come from? Because it's been 10 plus years since Johnny Manziel put on that Aggie helmet. And for Kirby Smart to say this, it's a little odd. Even though, again, like me a good Aggie joke, love when they get roasted. But Kirby coming out of left field to say something like this, why would he do that?
He's still mad that Johnny beat him in Tuscaloosa.
I was going to say, didn't Johnny put up like 42 in Tuscaloosa on him back in the day? I don't know. I honestly have no idea. I would imagine it's Johnny Manziel seems like a pretty low-hanging fruit to hit after if you're trying to make an easy joke. And Johnny seems like the type of dude that'd be cool with it too. So it's not like you're taking a shot at somebody that probably won't give it back to you a little bit. So I would imagine that, but I'm here for it personally. Like, let's get spicy, head coaches. Like, let's do it.
It's spicy.
Kirby had that quote about Phil Knight and Dan Lanning during SEC media days. I want more of this from Kirby and people like him.
Yeah. Kirby, spicy.
Yeah, I'm about it.
I'm
about it.
True that the portal spending doubled from a year ago?
In terms of like national spending?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, contracts were up sometimes 5x in a lot of cases. I think the highest paid player last portal cycle was Cam Ward and Riley Leonard were, depending on who you ask, between 1.5 and 2, and we had a ton of contracts way over that. Some offensive linemen were in that range, and obviously you had guys like Carson Beck and Darian Mensah, depending on who you talk to, command double that, 4 million plus. So, way up.
Is that, do you think, because they know the rev share's coming, so the school's going to be taking on most of the expense as opposed to the collective?
Yeah, basically it was an opportunity to double dip if you have a collective. Given that clearinghouse we were talking about earlier and fair market value, you weren't going to be able to spend the same way. So they basically just got to use their entire budget for half of the year. And for some schools, that means you had $10 million plus $13 million in rev share to change. So where the year before you had $10 million to spend on your roster, now you have 23. Well, I think it'll be really interesting, not this spring, but next winter, how schools deal with the increased expectations of market value when the money's not going to be there in the same way. Because I think you're going to see players taking pay cuts for the first time, and how that gets handled and massaged, I think will be very interesting. You're going to have a lot of, I think, upset players because their numbers are going to come down, or what their friends were making aren't what they're going to make. So that'll be an interesting element of that next winter.
That's when team culture plays a big role. Hummer, great stuff, man. Always appreciate it. Let's do it again next week.
Let's do it. All right, guys.
Appreciate it. Chris Hummer, national college football analyst, transfer portal guru for 24/7 Sports. Yeah, man. It's gonna be a little cray-cray, Zay, when some of these players have to take a pay cut. I mean, obviously, you're gonna have to really be creative and a really good communicator. And you're going to have to, I say that culture, that matters. It does. Like, does the guy love his teammates? Does he love being where he is? Is he willing to take less? Does he have a good advisor who's going to explain this to them that, hey, there's a cap coming in. You got in at the right time, but that's why you need to put some of that money away, because it's probably going to drop next year. And then which schools are willing to go back under the table like the good old days?
Good old days, man. Get that McDonald's bag back out,
Get that
baby.
bag ready, man.
Let's get it. That's
Who's
what I'm
getting the
talking
bags?
about.
That's right. Who's doing it?
Don't tell nobody, you know. Here you go.
I mean, we sort of know, like, the schools where there's a super booster, like Oregon, Texas Tech with Cody Campbell, and
Portnoy, Michigan.
So those guys are going to have to, I don't know what they're going to have to do, because we got to wait and see what the sanctions are and who's really, hey, you know how it is.
A flex.
You know, hey, SMU invented NIL, invented it.
Yeah, y'all the legends, man.
That's right.
Y'all changed the game.
That's right.
Shout out to your boy Craig James, man. You don't give him enough shout outs.
You always do this.
You don't always do this. That's your boy.
You're like, I hate that guy. We got my man Mike Leach fired at Texas Tech.
Oh my goodness.
Adam James. Scummy.
Go.
Hey man, Texas Tech football's never been the same. We'll see if Joey Juice can get it going. A lot of people talking about Texas Tech. Going to be a factor. Could be a playoff team in 2025.
Oh, for real? I ain't hear all that. All right.
I don't know if I believe it either.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you know.
Show me something then, Joey.
Right.
Joey McGuire doing things. Everything runs through Tech. Everything runs through Lubbock. What do he say? That's my man.
Well, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Let him know.
Baron Morton. How good is Baron Morton? Because they lose Taj Brooks. Anyway.
Yeah. Tech better not get Aaliyah Chavez. That's what I'm saying. I'd be hurt. Oh, that'd hurt me. Because I've never been this invested in a woman's high school player ever in my life. And I have been for Aaliyah Chavez. That's a special player. You look at Juju Watkins and Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark. Aaliyah Chavez is right there. She is right there as a game changer. And shout out to Vic going up there to watch her play, keep her invested. And she's a Vic Schaefer player too. That's the biggest thing. She's fiery. She be talking mess. She's about picking up full court. She's not just offense, even though she could score that rock and is averaging 30-something a game. Like, she is a Vic Schaefer type of player. So hopefully, you know, Texas, they probably won't be able to match that bag that Tech's throwing at her, but hopefully she sees Vic Schaefer and Texas basketball as something bigger than just NIL. And That's what could bring her down to the 40 acres. Because, man, Chip, she has this one video last summer. She was playing in one of the, All-American tournaments or events or something like that where the top girls were playing. And she said something to the camera. She was like, yo, I don't know who she was talking about, but she was talking about some other girl that's ranked high, high school ranks that y'all do 24/7 sports, whatever. And she was like, yo, I'm in your city and you ain't come out here to play against me. I know you don't want the smoke. I know you ain't about it. Whoever wants the smoke, I'm here. And I was like, man, this is a bad girl right here. She ain't playing no games with no one. She wants to prove that she's the best in the nation. That's what we need here at the 40 acres. I'm telling you, she is special. So it's okay. We'll be patient. Because what you and Hank said's right. Like, if she committed to Texas and right now living in Lubbock, she'd be having her house probably torched and stuff, and a lot of nasty folks out there. She doesn't need that or deserve it. So let's wait till the end. Then she can pick Texas, and the whole family can move. Whole family can move to the ATX because, again, Austin, Lubbock. Like, that's an easy decision in my opinion. So, yeah.
Hey,
I might have to go see her play myself if they make it to the state championship.
Her team had a battle against Argyle.
It's just her.
Well, this gal Cole, her teammate had 21. Chavez had 17. Okay. And obviously the defense, Ambrosia Cole. She had two of the biggest plays of the game. She had a steal and a fast break layup to go up by 1. And then she hit 2 free throws with 29 seconds left. And that allowed Monterey to win that game 58-52. So,
yeah, they probably play a triangle and 2 on her and put both girls on Aaliyah Chavez and say, you know what, we're just going to double her the whole game, try not to let her catch the ball and see what happens. The rest of you 4 on the court for Monterey, y'all got to beat us.
And they're not a real big team, Monterey. She's obviously a 6-foot point guard, but like the rest of her team isn't, they don't have a lot of size. So they do it with defense and hustle. And that gets to what you were saying about her being a Vic Schaefer type of player. She's used to playing defense and scrapping and doing whatever it takes to win on a team that certainly doesn't have a player like Kyla Oldacre or Taylor Jones. They're going to have to do it with hustle and steals and defense. And so,
man, I'm disappointed in Texas high school basketball, man. They're a little watered down this year. They're going the football route, going the Division I, Division II for 6A, 5A. So you're going to have a 6A Division I champion and a 6A Division II champion. We didn't have that when I was playing. If that was the case, I might have me a couple of rings then.
Let's go.
High school. You kidding me? If we were playing 6A Division II, you serious?
That's you would have been averaging 13-7 because you were motivated instead of 10-5.
Exactly. You kidding me? We're out here playing all these juggernauts and stuff in the first 2 rounds. Man, CC will already be in the Hall of Fame.
Let's go.
Kidding me? Which I still think he has a chance, but come on, committee. I don't know what committee is a part of that. I might have to talk to our boy John McClain to see what's up with my pops, what's going on there, because CC's done some things, man, and my pops, he's not one of those to gloat or show off or anything. He's, if he gets in the Hall of Fame, cool. If he doesn't, also cool. Like, I'm not one of those guys. I want to gloat. I want to show everybody that, my pops was one of them ones. You know what I'm saying? So
that's good, Zay.
Thank you. He needs that.
Yeah.
I got to be the one to put on for him. Because
you're not afraid. You're not afraid to stir it up and get people going.
Hell no.
Call to action.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
That's what it's all about. So
Quinn Ewers, if you missed it, Lone Star Live reported that Ewers pretty much played the entire season with that a torn oblique that Texas called an oblique strain.
Damn.
And it happened against Michigan. He tried to play the next week against the UTSA, but then threw that pass to Gunnar Helm, and he knew it was a problem. Remember when he pulled his jersey over his face? And so it makes you, kind of rethink what your belief is about Quinn Ewers, because he still led the team, to the SEC championship game, a CFP semifinal game. I don't blame him for what happened on 1st and goal. I blame the play calling and the lack of commitment to having a play on 1st and goal from the 1. But he threw for, 3,472 yards, 31 touchdowns. And he did it all with a torn oblique. So he's reportedly recovered from it. He's expected to be full strength for workouts at the combine. He's been studying film with former Cowboys coach Mike McCarthy.
Oh.
To get ready for the questioning that he'll face at the combine. So
look at Mike. Being productive. Because if I was Mike, I'd be in Turks and Caicos somewhere blowing that Cowboys money. Like, y'all ain't want me, I'm out. But Mike says, I want to give back. And working with Quinn, kudos for Mike there. I appreciate that. That's an interesting thing here, Chip, knowing Quinn Ewers. Like, we knew he was dealing with it, but we didn't know how severe it was. And now it's kind of like with Xavier Worthy and how we heard about him playing with that broken hand, like after the season was over. Again, Quinn Ewers, tough as hell. Like, for him to gut it out and play all the games that he did, we know it was up and down at times, and we know that Quinn also had some really good moments. But it makes you think, when you had 16 backing him up, 16 in Arch Manning, why wasn't Arch getting more bump there to rest Quinn a little bit more? Because, again, torn oblique, all right, it takes a while for that to heal, but why don't we have enough trust in Arch to throw him out there and let him ride? Like, obviously, the schedule got more difficult. You had Oklahoma, then Georgia back to back, and that's when Quinn Ewers came back in those games. We know what happened against Oklahoma. He struggled early, and then they just put the beat down on the Sooners, and then we saw what happened to Georgia, which basically the world was on fire when we saw that with this Texas football team. But I don't know, man. Like, again, I feel like Arch Manning was capable of doing some things. And to know that Quinn Ewers wasn't 100%, but Arch Manning was, that's just a little interesting to me that Sark was that loyal to Quinn Ewers at those times.
Yeah. Well, Sark, the plan was for Quinn Ewers to have the good season in 2024, turn pro. And if he sat, and Israel's right, if he sat for any extended period and Arch Manning got traction, it was going to be hard to sit Arch Manning down. And so as long as Quinn Ewers was telling everybody I'm good, I can play, I'm good. And, you know, how aggressively were the trainers encouraging Quinn to rest? What degree was the oblique tear? I mean, was it a grade 1, grade 2, grade 3? Grade 3 being pretty minor, grade 2 being, and grade 1 being like, we might need to do some surgery. It sounds to me like it was a grade 3 or a grade 2, which also you would call it a sprain. When you hear a sprained knee, that means one of the ligaments is partially torn. It's got a tear, small tear, most of which can recover on their own. But anyway, Ewers played with that injury and battled, and 4th and 13. You know, would he have been better if he was healthy the whole year? Yeah, probably. And everyone's like, well, what's going to happen at quarterback next year? Well, if Quinn Ewers played that whole year with that strain, and we know he had the ankle injury against Kentucky, the hip drop tackle, and he shows up the next week against A&M with the ankle brace on, he runs for 26 yards down the right sideline on a drive that set up Arch Manning for a 15-yard touchdown run. Quinn's a tough dude. So we all saw it. He didn't look comfortable in games. And you're like, I mean, Georgia, he was still suffering. But, you know, he got better. I don't blame the SEC championship game. I mean, well, a couple of tough interceptions in that one, but, you know, he battled. So I think his stock will rise at the combine. If he's healthy, I think when he's healthy and confident, he's a different quarterback. And we could see it in his eyes at times this season. He was not healthy and confident. So,
I mean, it makes sense in that Michigan game. Think about what we saw in the first half and what we saw in the second half. It was a big difference. And then just think about how Sark was calling plays for Quinn this season. Like, it was at times where it seemed like he didn't trust him really airing it out and going downfield on a lot of vertical stuff. And then when Arch Manning got in there, he was going vertical and on those deep posts and on those go routes and whatnot. And it's not, again, Quinn had some good moments where he threw the ball deep, especially the Matthew Golden, but the play calling was a lot different with Quinn Ewers in the game. It was a lot more short, intermediate stuff. And you have a torn oblique, like, I'm sure it's more difficult to really air it out here. So,
sure.
Again, it's the past. It happened. Season's over with. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. We could do that all day. But it just makes you wonder, like, yeah, maybe Arch would have been the best option. And even though you're so loyal to Quinn, who knows? Again, you got to the semifinals, the college football playoff. Like, that's a big deal, a really big deal. And you lost to a team that won it all, the whole freaking thing. So I hate to just go back and talk about this, but also it's always going to be in the back of my mind now hearing that Quinn Ewers torn oblique. Again, I thought it was just, a little strain. And I thought we got back from it. You had 2 buys. You had time. So, and then he had the ankle too. I don't know, man. The dude's tough. Like, the dude's tough as hell. I give him that. You cannot say Quinn Ewers is soft. If you're saying that, then you just flat out ignorant. But it's the coach's job to say, hey, with him being limited, do we play him or not? Or do we have a guy that's capable and healthy? do we play him instead? And Sark clearly made the decision to go with the guy that was a little limited due to the oblique injury.
Well, and I think, and Quad Standard Lab says hiding injuries like Sark does is a weakness and is detrimental to his team. He needs to be transparent and real. He could have told Quinn and Arch, I need whoever's healthy. Quinn, we all love you. And I get that. I get that. But Sark owes a lot to Quinn. Quinn coming to Texas helped to attract receivers. And then Arch decides to come to Texas, and Arch is attracting receivers. And it was right in that delicate balance, because we all couldn't believe it when Arch came into the Georgia game, because if Arch had lit it up, how do you take him off the field?
You don't.
At that point? So it was tricky, and that was the worst case scenario for Sark. Was Quinn getting injured this year? He wanted him to, and Quinn wanted it too. That's the face. When I say he pulled his jersey up over his face going into the medical tent against UTSA, he knew that injury was real and substantive and was going to impact his ability to have the kind of senior, or whatever, not senior year, but his last year of college football. He wanted to have that great year, maybe, the storybook year, win it all, win the Heisman, be a top pick in the draft. And that was what he and Sark were going for. And now the injury obviously played a role in not achieving that. And obviously this coming out right now as the combine is starting is a message to NFL teams that, hey, this guy's tough as nails. He played hurt, still led his team to within 2 minutes of moving on in the college football playoff. And so there we go.
Well, Sark's mentor that he loves to talk about, Nick Saban, he looked Jalen Hurts in the face and said, yo, bro, I'm sitting your ass down. You ain't it right now. We in a national championship game. There was no loyalty there. The loyalty is the team, not just one player.
At that point, Saban was established. Like, Sark needed Quinn to come to Texas to start the momentum. And if you pour true serum in Sark, he had Casey and he had Hudson Card, and he didn't want either of those guys. Seriously. That's why he did that stunt with the Kansas game where he's like, I'm starting Hudson Card. It's like, really? Why?
Hudson Card should have been cold, man. That still hurts.
Well, and
he should have been so cold. What happened?
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't have enough reps as a quarterback. Because remember, his time at Lake Travis, he went from wide receiver to quarterback.
Right.
Not everybody's been Roethlisberger and could start their senior year only as a quarterback and then go on to be a Hall of Famer and the 2-time Super Bowl champion. Like, that's very rare air. But damn, I thought Hudson Card was going to be it, man.
Well, he got caught. He got caught in a coaching change. I mean, so that sucks for him. But, so Quad says, stop playing babysitter with his effing quarterbacks. I think you'll see that now. Now, he's got Arch, he's got Trey Owens, he's got KJ Lacey. He's been able to build up the program, build up the momentum. And I have to think that there was a kind of outside the box loyalty to Quinn for coming to Texas and getting the ball rolling from a momentum standpoint. And it was a tough spot to be in. There is no doubt, because that's just tough.
It is tough. I get it. And it always sticks with me, too, what Sark said about his time at BYU when he got hurt or the wind knocked out of him for a couple of plays and coach took him out and stuff. And he was like, I hated it. I didn't come out. I was hurting like hell. I didn't come out because I knew I'm not giving the backup an opportunity to take my job. That will always stick with me when I think about Quinn Ewers, because Sark, being a former quarterback himself, he's been in that seat. He's understood that, hey, you can't give this up for nothing. Like, you got to power through, because in the blink of an eye, your job could be gone, and the next man who comes up can light it up, and that's it. Your time at that program could be over just like that. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. We talk about it all the time, Chip. I don't know if that had anything to do with Quinn Ewers being here and how much he respected the fact that Quinn Ewers was able to play through injury. But, hey, it is what it is. Quinn Ewers, you're tough as hell, bro. Appreciate the time that he had at Texas, but yeah, Sark was in a bind there. He was in a bind.
Yeah, and I think the kind of flip side deal was, I'm going to be loyal to you because you came here and you got the ball rolling for us. But I'm sure the deal was, this is your season.
Yeah.
Like, you're coming back. This is your season. Make your statement, because then I'm
moving on.
I got to move on. I got to move on to the next guy. And good for Quinn. He absolutely could have transferred and played another year of college football, but I think he's betting on himself. Hey, I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to be fine. I'll go do what I do. And it starts this week at the combine. Someone asked, does the combine matter anymore? I think it does when you're sending 14 guys there, because it didn't matter to Texas fans when Texas was sending Cameron Dicker and Josh Thompson to the combine.
Oh my God.
I mean, no offense to those guys.
No, just that's it.
Yeah. And what, in the 2021 season, they didn't have anybody. Now they got 14. So yeah, things are on the up. All right, let's get a couple of mentions in. We'll get to the chip shot. Hey, all my heavy snorers out there, we need to get you into the Sleep Cycle Center, because they're going to evaluate your breathing. They're going to give you a sleep test. They've got the best technology, the best evaluation of your airways and treatment options related to sleep and breathing issues such as sleep apnea. Because if you're a heavy snorer, and if you've got a wife who's telling you need to sleep in the other room, I can't sleep, then you probably, you need to get into the Sleep Cycle Center to make sure that if you have sleep apnea, which is basically you stopping your breathing because your jaw is falling back and closing up your airwaves, it causes you to wake up. Sometimes you don't wake up, and that's the worst case scenario. So get into Sleep Cycle Center, find out what's going on with your body. And here's the great thing. You go in and mention Texas Sports Unfiltered. They're going to give you $100 off a sleep study or a weight loss program. Located in the Arboretum and in Lakeway, they see patients, and they're in network for most medical insurances. Go to sleepcyclecenter.com for more information and book your appointment. And remember, tell them you heard about them on Texas Sports Unfiltered. Cover 3, love me some Cover 3, my go-to. Get in there. Happy hour, the $7 social hour menu. If you've never been to Cover 3, this is a jewel. I mean, this is an absolute jewel, especially for our audience. You've got high-end food without the high-end prices. You got a great vibe, great place to hang out with your friends, and you can watch your favorite team because they've got TVs all over the restaurant. It's just the vibe. I love it. I love the food. Check it out and tell me. Go get the Sean Adams prime rib sandwich. Cover 3 Anderson, Cover 3 Round Rock, and Cover 2 at 183 in Lake Creek. And of course, when you're ready for the big screen of your dreams, audiovisual consultations, our man Tom McKay, he's got you covered. And I love it that we got Camilla to tell us all about it.
Hi, this is Tom McKay, owner of Audiovisual Consultations. We've been providing custom electronic systems for Central Texas for more than 36 years. And
Old man, I think they all know who you are and what your company does. This is Camilla McKay. The old man believes in big fun and big ideas. He can make dreams come true, so why not dream big? I've been up in Boston, but I know the old man and all his friends and fellow radio heads have been spreading the holiday spirit here in Texas. Why should we stop there? Keep spreading the good feelings all over. Audiovisual Consultations carries all major brands of televisions and stereo equipment at prices you can't find in stores. And you don't have to leave your house. Just like Santa, they deliver the gifts to you.
yeah, I like that, kid. Throw a party, hang out with your friends, catch a concert.
That's all fun and good, but can we get back to the business? You can give us a call at 512-255-8678 or visit our website at avconsultations.com for some cool electronics.
Oh, now you're forgetting something.
And as always, hug your kids. We only pretend to be annoyed. Watch some games with your friends and make love to whoever the hell you want.
Yeah. avconsultations.com. All right, Zay. So apparently the Green Bay Packers have proposed banning the tush push.
Soft.
It's soft. I want Sark to invest heavily in the tush push. Call it the stampede. You got all these big humans. You got the best talent so that you can get a yard when you have first and goal from the one. It's a tough physical play. Defenses hate it. This is why the Packers want it banned. So this spring, double down on the tush push, call it the stampede, and let people know what's coming. When Texas needs a yard, they're going to get it. No more, guesswork and shuffling the deck and, I didn't like how that first play looks. I'm going to run a toss sweep. No, can't do that. So
We doing it with Arch though?
yeah,
Okay.
big, long, strong dude.
Okay.
I like it.
Because
It's tough.
Jalen Hurts, he be squatting like 800, something crazy like that. So I just, that dude, he durable for it. I just want to make sure because I seen Patrick Mahomes try to do these QB sneaks, and Andy Reid don't even do them no more because he got hurt that one time. So that's always scares me in the back of my mind when Patrick Mahomes yelled at it. But
if they've got an athlete who can take the ball under center that they feel is better than Arch, okay, but get the right personnel in there and run it. Everybody dives at the knees of the defensive lineman, gets under them, and then everybody pushes the quarterback as those defensive linemen fall down and become just a road bump in your way to picking up 1 yard.
let's not go back to memory lane, man.
Naaman is not optimistic on that. Naaman says, Chip, good luck on that. Sark gets to the goal line and runs side to side. Not always, but yeah.
Chad Scott coming in. Chad Scott gonna be like, Steve, come on, bro. We're gonna have to improve this. Just saying, before I sign on the dotted line, we gonna make sure we improve from this. Just gotta let you know so you could be part of the train that we trying to push, dog. Like, you got to be about it. You call the plays. I'm going to get my guys right. Please believe in them. Please. It's 1 yard. Believe in
1 yard.
Guys.
The chip shot today, just seeking 1 yard.
Seeking 1 yard.
All right, let's get to the right call.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Hell of a chip shot, my friend. Before the right call, though, shout out to our terrific sponsors like McCall Custom Homes. Don't listen to the scrubs out there, the guys that don't know what they're doing, the guys that have no experience, have to go to YouTube to find out how to fix a certain something in your home, and then they just make it worse, and then they still try to charge you. That's not a good look. McCall Custom Homes, they're the best. They've been doing it for over 40 years in the business when it comes to renovating your home. Trust the experts at McCall Custom Homes. Quality, craftsmanship. That's what they're about. The father and son duo, they've been doing it for a combination of experience of over 50 years, and they will turn your home into something truly special. And plus, they're Austinites. Can't beat that. So check out all of their different platforms so you could see their terrific work, like Facebook and Instagram. Search for at McCall Custom Homes. Give our boy Mike a call at 512-633-9580. That's 512-633-9580. Or shoot him an email at mike@mccallcustomhomes.com and check out their new website, McCall Custom Homes ATX.com. It's McCall Custom Homes. We build value into your home. And Covert Bee Cave, Covert Automotive Dealership, that have been doing it in the greater Austin area for over 100 years and been doing it well. And if you want to take my word for it, listen to the terrific commercial right here.
It's really a family experience. You know, I walked in the showroom today and everybody greeted me by name. How are you doing? What's going on? How's everything going? From a price standpoint, from a customer service perspective, just conversation when you come in, it feels no pressure. I want to buy cars here.
The family buying car experience, one of the best that you will ever have.
Come and experience it for yourself.
Covert, born and raised in Austin.
That's right. All 7 terrific brands that they have: Buick, GMC, Cadillac, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Wifey and I are Covert BK people, and you can be too. Nobody beats our Covert deal. Not now, not ever. And Leaf Landscape Supply. If you're looking for large quantities of supplies to fulfill any landscaping job, trendy house plants, a collection of specialty plants and rare plants, Leaf Landscape Supply is your one-stop shop for everything you need. A full-service wholesale and retail plant, nursery, and landscape supplier here in the ATX. Go visit both of their terrific locations. Down south off of Monterey Oaks and 290, and up north off of Pond Springs Road. Check out their website at leaflandscapesupply.com. And remember, please don't forget, when you go in and you make a purchase, let them know your boy Zay Collier put you on from Texas Sports Unfiltered, and you get 10% off. Can't beat that. 10% off at Leaf Landscape Supply. All right, Ship, tonight we got a James Brown version of the big payback, because Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers are hosting the Dallas Mavericks in LA tonight on TNT. Anthony Davis won't be playing, but Luka will, and Luka is very motivated from the sources going around the Lakers facility and his camp. So much, the dude has transformed his body in the last few weeks. Check this out. I am pulling up a picture of Luka Doncic from left to right, a before and after photo. On the left side, you see Luka from 2 weeks ago. Look a little doughy, look a little pudgy. On the right, a lean, mean, hooping machine. That's a guy that looks like he about 225 right now. Little bit of muscle. Quad, where you at, Quad? You see my guy getting in shape. This ain't no Zempic either. This is organic. This is drinking smoothies and different fruit.
How you know?
I don't know. I'm speculating here. But again, look at the body. You see here? You know what I'm saying? My man ain't eating them burgers no more.
Hey, those darker colors are slimming. The picture Zay is showing, the puffy Luka is in the yellow gold Lakers jersey. The slimming Luka is in a black t-shirt and a purple Lakers practice jersey.
Look at the face.
Yeah.
Look, come on, man. Come on.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, this all just seems like such a Nico Harrison conspiracy to help the Lakers because, of course, you're going to trade the guy in the middle of the night. You don't talk to any other teams, and then you leak out that the reason is the guy won't get in shape. The guy won't get in shape. He's a soft tissue injury machine. He's never going to make it. His career is always going to miss games. He's out of shape. Okay. You know how competitive he is. Of course he's going to respond.
That's right.
Now he's got LeBron. I mean, this whole thing is so set up for the Lakers. It's ridiculous. It's just so annoying. And I'm
man.
not
Fruits
telling
and
anything.
veggies, like my man Naaman said, eating cabbage, just all healthy. Oh, and he's in LA too. LA is like the biggest health nut city in the world. You go from Dallas when you eating enchiladas and fajitas and stuff, brisket. You can't forget the bread with the brisket either. You got to sop up the sauce and stuff. That wasn't a good look. That's not a good environment for Luka. Too much temptation. You know what I'm saying? Now you're in LA, nothing but greens, nothing but fruits and veggies and stuff. Like
avocado toast.
Avocado toast. You know, wheat bread too.
Yeah, not that.
Yeah, it's on.
That dyed
on.
flour. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. I can't wait for tonight. I will be locked in, seeing what my man Luka does to the Mavs. And you know both teams have got to show that. Mavs got to show we don't miss him. We don't miss this guy. So they're going to be playing their hearts out. But
what are the Lakers? 2-2 with Luka?
2-2. That was LeBron's fault. We got to blame LeBron there. LeBron, too much on-ball stuff. Luka's got to be the run that runs the show. You know what I'm saying? I know that might be tough for Bron, but bro, you in year 22. You got to do what's best for the team. You got to play off ball a little bit. When Luka goes out the game, then we could put the ball back in your hands, Bron. Then you could do what you've done for the last 20-something years. But when Luka and Bron are in together, Bron go stand in that corner, let Luka operate. When he gets doubled, cut, be ready to catch and shoot, be a great defender like you've done your whole career, turn defense into offense. Like if LeBron takes that responsibility and runs with it, hey, this Lakers team, high ceiling, real high. Austin Reeves, you can't sleep on him. I like Dorian Finney-Smith. Him and Luka are very tight, so Luka has a comfort there with Dorian Finney-Smith. Like, oh yeah. And you know, Luka, he's going to be nervous tonight. He's human. He's going to be nervous. Again, playing against a team that said, hey, screw you, bruh. We don't believe in you. We don't believe in your work ethic. We don't believe in your eating habits or the fact that you take this game seriously enough to get your body right. Be gone. So that hurts a little bit. That hurts your pride. You know what I'm saying? Now, Luka, everything's coming back around, which also that first game that Luka played in the Lakers uniform, Dirk Nowitzki, you know you wrong for going to that game, bro, and supporting Luka. I didn't like that from Dirk. Dirk, you're a Mav, bro. You're a Mav. Like, once Luka leaves, you don't go with him. I get it. They're friends and stuff, and it meant a lot to Luka. That's beyond basketball stuff. They have that, you know, bond from being both from Europe. So I get it, you know, that way. But if I'm a Mavs fan, which I'm not, I want all Texas teams to thrive. Rockets, Spurs, Mavs, all Texas teams to thrive as a local Texan myself. But I didn't like that from Dirk. Very traitorish. Very traitorish. Like,
come on, man.
What you mean?
What you mean?
This is Dirk. We got a statue of you outside of American Airlines, bruh. What are you going to the Lakers game for? You're supporting what we kicked off? We kicked them out for a reason.
I admit that was probably poor timing. Too soon.
Way too soon.
You should have waited for this game. So he could have at least said, I'm here for the Mavericks.
Yeah.
And then head over to Luka's house after the game or before the game, make sure
Yeah.
he's okay, do whatever you got to do as a friend. Yeah.
Yeah. You should be there for Anthony Davis, Dirk. You need to be teaching Anthony Davis the one leg fadeaway and all that stuff. That's what you should be doing. Yeah. That was a bad move, but let's bring on the guys. Patrick, Matt.
Hey man. Hey man, you look.
Patrick, what's up, Matt?
Dirk can't play Dirk can't play against Anthony Davis because he's gonna hurt Anthony Davis.
Oh.
We know that. Anthony Davis has to be in protective glass every second of every day until he's on the court. That's all you can do. I mean, that guy played what? One good half of basketball and was like, see y'all later. Mavs legacy over. I'll check on me in March. And I'll tell you this. You know who built a statue for Dirk? Mark Cuban did. He sold the team. I don't think Dirk's going to be with the Mavs forever now. Because I don't think this new staff don't give a damn about Dallas and don't give a damn about the Mavs. They want to legalize gambling, and that is it. Bottom line. Basketball doesn't matter.
It's a good point.
I cannot agree with Patrick more. I'm
If
very passionate.
Go for it, man. Dude, they don't care. They don't care. You don't trade Luka for Anthony Davis. You just don't do it.
No.
There's not one analyst who's like, that's a good call. And then they double down to it 20 times.
I guarantee you, I'll sign out on this. Nico was pulling an inside job. And when he gets fired from the Mavs, he's going back to work for the Lakers, or they're just going to give him a big old check to go sit on the beach.
Yeah. No, all of it's shady. All of it is shady.
So shady.
Yo,
I completely
and
agree.
I feel bad for Mavs fans. I feel bad for Mavs fans.
Rex stand meth and coke is insane. Come on. Come on.
Yeah, that's what he
doing?
says. That's the Luka diet now.
Come on. What are we doing? Let the guy be healthy.
Hey, Zay, how much are you looking forward to seeing Luka trash talk Jason Kidd the entire game?
That would be pretty badass. But it's not Jason talk.
Hey, but Jason was at that press conference, wasn't he?
He had no choice. He's the coach.
Just saying, I think Luka's going to talk some tonight.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll be there with my popcorn and all, extra butter.
Hey,
love it. Thank you guys.
Appreciate it, fellas. We'll be back tomorrow at 2.
There we go. Get us in to Open Gym here on Texas Sports Unfiltered. Myself, Patrick Davis, along with Matt Galatzan, Texas Longhorns on SI. Going to get into the Dwayne Akina news, basketball, baseball, all the good stuff we get into here on Open Gym. Of course, you guys are welcome to join the show as well in the chat, in the text, wherever you want to join in and talk with us. And, of course, we'll talk a little bit more Luka later because it's fun to talk about to get Matt riled up. But let's bring him in. Matt Galatzan from Texas Longhorns on SI. We have breaking news yesterday, 5 minutes after we got off the air. Do you change your statement on Dwayne Akina now?
No. I still think it. Look, I will say I can understand what they're doing. What I don't understand is why. I mean, look, I'm not Chip Brown, who just got off the air and who's been the quintessential insider for Texas Longhorns football for forever. I don't think that they would have done this just for there was a plan. They probably saw this coming. They said, we're going to go get Dwayne, and they probably reached out to other people, decided Dwayne was the way to go. I trust their decision. I respect their decision. It's just the timing is just hilarious.
Yeah, the timing was really funny for us getting off, and we had talked about it, and then immediately 5 minutes after, Matt texts me. It was outside, and I just get to him like, really? Really that fast? I've had that happen enough times. The ones that were knowing, when I did morning, you didn't expect anything. I think the only news we ever broke in the morning was Scotty Scheffler. I think that's that, which, by the way, I saw there's a Scotty Scheffler. There's coverage of it, like a new thing on Netflix. There's some golf documentary thing on Netflix, something like,
it's kind of like Hard Knocks, but for golf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something like that. And they were saying they have stuff about it on there now.
Oh, I didn't know they had that. Okay.
That season started, and that's on Netflix. I don't have Netflix, so I'm not going to be able to watch it until I get Netflix. I was going to get it when wrestling started on there, but I haven't got it yet. So
I will definitely watch that. But no, I think that I don't have a problem with Dwayne Akina, the coach. I think he's a tremendous coach. I think he's probably going to do a very good job. It's just it's the reason I said that is because it's the name that we kept hearing every single time there was a job opening at the secondary for Texas over the last decade.
Yeah.
So that was my biggest beef. Plus he's kind of old, but he's a really good coach. So.
He is, and I get it. And let's get into it as we get going. Full Swing. Thank you, Rodney. I believe the name of that show. But yeah, that was coming out. It was the news. And the reality was but we both thought it probably wouldn't be Dwayne Akina is because his name is, as Matt just said, was brought up in every single rumor for the last 10 years until the Blake Gideon left. And that his name was not. And it was kind of set that he wasn't coming in. And now it appears much more that it was because he said, I'm not coming down for that role. But if you let me run the room, I'll come back. And they were going to have Terry Joseph run the room. So I guess that was where the parting went. It would appear Mike Mickens in that all kind of fell through already, where he was not going to leave Notre Dame. I'm guessing they've had enough conversations with enough names that were not going to leave that they end up going to a Dwayne Akina and finally saying, all right, it's your room again. I don't mind the hire. I like Dwayne Akina. He's done a lot of things. It's going to be another connection to the past that when you lose a Blake Gideon, who was a tie to the past, this kind of keeps, especially at secondary room where Quandre and Michael Huff and all those guys that have been part of the and of course Rod Babers and all those guys who have been part of it can be part of it still because they know they have a personal relationship with that coach. But yeah, it was a little surprising, and it was surprising how fast it was.
Yeah, it was very fast. I was expecting a couple of days before we heard any news, but they must have known Terry was going to leave for a while. At least a few days. So they had opportunity to make some phone calls, settle on Dwayne. I mean, listen, all the, skins on the wall and all the accolades are there. Listen to these numbers for Dwayne Akina while he was at Texas from 2001 to 2013. 2 Thorpe Award winners, 4 Thorpe Award finalists, 5 All-Americans, 5 first-round draft picks, 15 NFL draft picks, 12 all-conference selections. And, I mean, that's names like, Aaron Ross, Earl Thomas, Ahmad Brooks, Rod Babers, Nathan Vasher, Cedric Griffin, Michael Griffin, Marcus Griffin, Terrell Brown, Curtis Brown, Aaron Williams, Blake Gideon, Chalky Brown, Carrington Bynum, Quandre Diggs, Kenny Vaccaro. The list goes on. So he brings in talent. He develops talent. He gets that talent to the NFL. He has as many first-round draft picks for Texas as for defensive backs to his name as I believe LSU has, who claims to be DBU, as LSU has all time. So just in that 12-year span, he has more first-round draft picks at defensive back than LSU does all time. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's a good hire. Don't get me wrong. It's just not what we expected.
There's a lot to it. And, when you look into the Dwayne Akina history of, this is what's funny is there's so many ties to what he's done with Texas. And I'll get to that in a second. But you also look at Arizona where they were talking to him last year and they didn't really have a role for him. And I think an analyst was where they were kind of looking at him, and they then gave him the defensive coordinator position at Arizona to keep him in Arizona. And he, probably gave him a raise in the defensive coordinator position. He took that for a year, but then they gave that away after this year. Whether that was his decision, that he didn't want all the extra pressure on it, whether that was an Arizona decision, I couldn't really find that. But it does seem that he has stepped out he would kind of gone back down in the rankings. And now this is now a tie-in that everyone, all the ex-players, of course, know Nansen. Now I wonder how much it had come into it that Mac Brown is no longer in North Carolina and back hanging out in Austin now. And maybe that's an old friend of Dwayne Akina that can help you make that move. And, their families can hang out again together. Makes that move back to Texas a little bit easier because you have another old friend that's there. You also throw in the fact that Johnny Nansen coached with him at Arizona. So a guy on that staff. They've worked together when they were at Arizona. So there's a lot of pieces that make this make sense in the grand scheme of things because there are not only his old ties, but there's a tie on the staff currently, and his old buddy who's the old coach of Texas is at least for the time being back in Austin to help out that transition, have him come back. And I just think there's a lot of pieces that make it seem smart. And it does seem, like you said earlier, that this is a this was something that was somewhat discussed, and when it went down, they had already talked to Akina at some point, and they were ready if the room became available to be for someone to run the room now, that he would really like that phone call. But until that time happened, Terry Joseph walks away. Orphe's not going to run that room. So it's open. We need someone to come in and keep recruits, and we need someone to get us our next Thorpe. So Namon Roberts says, did he produce a Thorpe Award winner within the next 3 years? Possibly. We'll see what Manny Muhammad does this year. But yeah, Manny Muhammad's right on that list. I mean, he's a guy who, Michael Taft is going to get up there. I mean, and then in a couple of years, we don't know where Kobe Black's going to be. And look, we can throw out another one. He committed to Washington. I don't know if he enrolled yet. I don't know, but Takario Davis was with him last year and transferred out. Who knows if that phone call happens again? I don't know the legalities of that or whatever. If he can go back in the portal, we know that some people have left teams before. I don't think he will. I'm just going to throw out there that he's a really good cornerback. That was another guy that was part of Dwayne Akina's staff that had a really, really great season.
Yeah, I like the point you brought up about Nansen too. I wonder how much of a role he played in this, because he knows Akina as well as anybody on that staff does at this point. You know, he knows everything that guy can do. He knows what he's going to do in the secondary. He knows the kind of schemes that they're going to run back there. He probably had been talking to Pete Kwiatkowski about this for quite a while. You know, if there was a change, Dwayne's the guy. And look, when you lose a guy like Terry Joseph, who was running that room and who has the experience that Terry Joseph has, you need to bring in a guy who has that kind of experience. So this all makes sense. I mean, it was Jack Burton says his first coaching job was in 1979. He's seen some things. So yeah, that's true. So he's seen it all. He can prepare for anything. He's got the accolades. He puts, like, he checks all of the boxes. The only thing that doesn't check the box necessarily for the trend of assistants that we've seen for the most part under Sark is the age, but we don't know how long-term of a hire this is going to be either. This could just be a couple years stopgap.
No, and I think you are put in there that if he does say, I'm going to coach to 70, I think he's 68 right now. He says, I'm going to coach to 70, and that'll be it. And if you say, okay, well, in 2 years, we're not going to be behind the coaching carousel at this. We can be in front of it when you decide to step down, because hopefully everything goes well. So maybe he'll coach for another 3-4 years. Who knows what he's actually thinking right now? But at least you can work into a world where he's actually you can step in front of it, as opposed to where Terry Joseph left so late in the cycle that basically everybody's got their staff set. All the people have already decided where they're going to be going. And so I think you didn't have that many choices, but this is I'll take it as a good hire in that situation where there wasn't a lot of options still available. And so you could have reached and maybe found somebody great. But again, for somebody who knows how to run that room, knows what they need to do, has worked with Johnny Nansen, which again, if we want to talk about the change in the defensive coaching staff between 2023 and 2024, it was Johnny Nansen. Mm-hmm. That was the change. Now, Terry Joseph and Blake Gideon had a lot to do with how those guys played and how they were coached up to be ready to go when the schemes changed a little bit and helped them out. But at the same time, Nansen did that. Akina has time with Nansen as well. So this is going to be, I think it's going to be a really good hire for them in the time of, we discussed yesterday, we'll be really interested to see who's on the list. The list never came out. It just went straight to Akina. But I think that worked off. I love some of the people. Dwayne might run off some of the young softies on the team. He's intense. I don't think there's going to be that many softies. I get that you could run. You're going to, but he'll bring in other guys. You will have a little bit of, I'm sure, of people being not happy about it, but there will also be some people that are really excited to come to play for Dwayne Akina now that he's back at a school that has produced a number of Thorpe Award finalists and winners.
I don't know. I like to your point. I don't know how many young softies are left on this roster after Sark took over and sort of implemented his culture. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of those guys left. If you're talking about, let's say that part of this discussion was for Dwayne Akina, you're going to come in here and coach. You're not going to be out there on the recruiting trail. We're going to leave that to Mark Orphe and the new cornerbacks coach, whose name kind of escapes my brain at the moment. But let's let the younger guys go out there and recruit. Let's let this other staff that we brought in there go in and recruit. And you can just be the guy that's drawing up the drills, coaching the guys up, and you can focus on 100% of coaching. I think that is probably something that appealed to him as well, because at 68 years old, you don't want to be out on the recruiting trail, however many months a year outside of the season. So I'm not saying he's not going to talk to recruits. Of course he is. He's he's a passing game coordinator and all of those things. So, but to be able to have some younger guys in the staff that can kind of take on the brunt of that responsibility and leave a guy like Akina to drawing up the X's and O's, it's kind of a good marriage there.
Yeah, I do. I think it will work out, and that's it. The main question is, well, how do PK and him get along? How does Sark and him get along? Of somebody who's been there and has a lot of ties. I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think this could have been more of a problem if you talk about it starting when PK and Sark haven't got the success under their belt. But at this point, he knows he's walking into a program that is being run very well. He knows what he's walking into. So I don't think it's going to be a problem at all. The name you're looking for, by the way, is Kenyoto Hudson, is the Nichols coach that has been promoted to Nichols coach. So, yeah, you still have a lot of different names in there, a lot of people to help you coach. But it really feels like this was something that may have been somewhat in the works for a little while, or at least talked about because it happened so quickly. But also that's great news because, with when Blake Gideon left, you had some recruits be a little questionable about it. We know that before they got Chad Scott to come in after Tashard Choice left, there were some questions and some guys, we had the backed out of a commitment or backed out of a visit. And I think with this, you cut that out and say it's done within a day or two, or a day really. And now you're good to go. We're good to go. If you want to talk to the new coach, you can do that, but you don't have to worry about who we're going to hire. And in recruiting, so even if it is that he doesn't have to go on all these visits, he can at least get a phone call. It also helps in 2025 that you can have video calls and you can do all of these things that make it a lot easier. So you don't have to necessarily constantly get on a plane and go. So I'm sure he'll do it some, but I bet you're right that there may be some points of, we got some other young guys that are really charismatic and want to go out there. We'll tell you the ones where we feel we need you out there. But you're not going to be going to every high school and talking to everybody. We're not probably calling you for a lot of 3 stars where, you're probably getting the calls for the guys that you want to walk in and show them all the guys you've worked with. And that one we may call you in for.
I also wonder how familiar Pete Kwiatkowski probably is with Dwayne Akina, given that they were both coaching in the Pac-12 against each other from basically 2014 or really 2014 until 2020 when Kwiatkowski came over to Texas. So he's probably very, very familiar with what he does outside of just the, familiarity with coaches in general. I mean, they were going up against each other every year. So I'm sure he's watched a lot of his defensive back rooms and he's taken some things that, he had some boxes that he wanted to check on for his defensive backs coach. And I'm sure Akina checked every single one of those. There's no way that Sark didn't go to Kwiatkowski and say, hey, do you want these things, or is this the kind of guy that you want, X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. And Akina just checked every single one of those boxes.
Yeah, no, it seems like it's going to be a really good fit. We'll know more going in. It'll be interesting to see how he makes it work with the guys that are still in the system. We'll have to still go in and see what did they decide to do. But again, the fact that Nansen and him have worked together already makes it feel like the transition will be a lot smoother than it could have been if it was just PK and Akina trying to work it out. That there's already, the language and the verbiage and all of that, at least one of the coaches already knows. So it should be able to come in pretty easy. I do want to get into something else because you sent me this morning that Mel Kiper put out a mock draft, and it's I believe his first mock draft he's done so far. And it's an interesting one because we can talk about where he puts, a Thorpe Award winner on his mock draft and where he values Texas. And I don't know if someone from Texas slept with Mel Kiper's wife or what, but he is not a fan of Texas players as much as some others. I'll say that up front. But Mel Kiper put out his new mock draft. And, we'll love to get your opinion on this too in the chat because there's some I don't know about some of these, but he Mel Kiper put out his new one. Tennessee Titans. He has Abdul Carter going there. That is pretty standard, except for if a quarterback goes there. I still think they can make a trade and a quarterback goes there, but I don't think the Titans take a quarterback. He has the Browns taking Cam Ward, the Giants taking Travis Hunter. Patriots take the first offensive tackle, Will Campbell, which we're pretty sure is going to be the first offensive tackle. That's what it seems like right now, that everyone is on unanimous. Again, we'll see what they come in at the combine and what they look like there. We go Mason Graham at 5, and then the Raiders take Ashton Janty, running back, at 6, ahead of Shedeur Sanders. And this is where it really feels like we see Mel Kiper, Bevo's bodyguard says it. He does it just for clicks. It feels like this may be just for clicks at points, because he has him saying, taking Ashton Janty, going with the running back. But this is, I will say this does feel like there's a lot of running backs being picked in the first round. Mel Kiper is notoriously anti-running back in the first round, and he still has one going 6 here. This feels like more and more people are on board of running backs going in the first round, at least 1 or 2, at least 2 in most of these. I don't know if that's going to be the case. That's usually not, but he has that, and then he has Shedeur Sanders going to the Jets. That would be interesting because it is New York, so it may pass muster with Dion and whether he allows his son to go. But this is I don't know if Shedeur Sanders, I don't know. If you're Dion, are the Jets a competent enough franchise, or is it because they're in New York that you say I'm okay with Shedeur going there, or do you feel it doesn't matter, they're screwed, it's the Jets?
The Jets might be the only franchise more toxic than the Cowboys, so I have a hard time believing, right up there with the Browns, I have a hard time believing Dion's going to let him go there. The Giants, I can see. The Jets, not so much. I also have a very, very hard time seeing the Raiders and Tom Brady, considering their relationship, passing on Shedeur Sanders for a running back, no matter who the running back is. It's an interesting fit, considering, the Raiders absolutely need a running back. Don't get me wrong, but they don't have a quarterback. Unless Mel Kiper has some sort of inside info that they're going to trade for a quarterback here in the next few weeks, and they're going to get a Matt Stafford or something along those lines, that right there does not make too much sense to me.
No, it really doesn't. I just don't feel, and yeah, the Matt Stafford we'll talk about a little bit later in the show, because that one's getting really interesting. But I don't see that. It just seems weird. It doesn't seem like a great pickup. After letting Josh Jacobs go, why would you immediately go back and say that's the missing piece? We still don't have a quarterback. We don't really have the wide receivers. We don't have anything at all. Let's start with running back. Usually is not the best plan. But they might go there. We'll jump to number 10, Josh Simmons, second tackle coming off the board from Ohio State. He's the one who's been injured a lot, and he goes number 10 in Mel Kiper's mock draft.
Can I pop in here real quick?
Yeah, please.
And we're going to get to Kelvin Banks here in a bit, but Mel Kiper's biggest gripe against Kelvin Banks is the injuries.
Yes.
And you're going to put the one guy who's been injured – I mean, not the one guy. I mean, Kelvin Banks has barely been injured in his career, but the guy who has been by far injured more than Kelvin Banks at number 10. It doesn't have the pedigree that Kelvin Banks has.
No,
but that's okay.
That's what I told you. Something happened. Someone slept from Texas. One of y'all on this chat did something to Mel Kiper. I don't know who it was, but someone did something to him. 49ers get Will Johnson, and then the Cowboys at 12 take Amarian Hampton. They take a running back. They do not take Ashton Janty because he's already off the board, but they still take a running back. He's got Amarian Hampton 1-for-1 with Ashton Janty, which I understand the concept of Ashton Janty and worrying about if he's going to be able to hold up being a 3-down back, and is he really going to be as great as he looked in college, or was he just a great college running back? But this is Amarian Hampton played in the ACC. So I like Amarian Hampton a lot, but if you're saying this is a 6-12, I don't necessarily take him from these conferences where it doesn't feel like either of them has played a ton of NFL level talent. And North Carolina wasn't that good of a team this year. So he wasn't able to carry. And I know there's just a lot of pieces to that. I like Amari Hampton to the Cowboys. I don't like it at 12 at all.
No, and I feel like I'm looking at Amari Hampton's stats right now. He had 185 yards against North Carolina State. He had 244 against Wake Forest, 172 against Florida State. Those, to my knowledge, were not the three best teams in the ACC. He had some good games against Georgia Tech and I don't even know who NCCU is. I'm not pulling that up right now, but like, listen.
Oh, I believe it's in North Carolina Coastal University.
Okay, there you go. So, look, he's a good running back. Don't get me wrong. But to say that he's 1-for-1 with Ascent-Genti, I don't understand how you can make that claim based on just the level of competition. Like the best teams that Ascent-Genti faced were Oregon and Penn State, and he decimated Oregon. And just that defense right there is better than any defense that Amari Hampton faced all year. I mean, granted, you can't make every claim based off of like a 1-to-1, competition thing. There's way more to it than that, obviously. But this just seems really high for a North Carolina running back. I don't see it. I think that if the Cowboys are in this position and Amari Hampton's left on the board, they can easily trade back and probably get him later if that's who they really want. But when you're sitting here making a mock draft, obviously you can't, always factor in trades because that's just going to mess everything up way down the line. It's going to make it kind of wonky. But this seems like a big reach.
No, it is. And I don't think the Cowboys are going to reach like that. I think there's too many other players available that they'd love to have. I mean, we say, and this mock draft, Kelvin Banks is still out there. If you want to go get an offensive lineman that you feel will be with your team, you can go get a defensive lineman you feel is going to be with your team. You can get a wide receiver. No wide receivers off the board at this pick. You could go get the best player at another position, or you could get a position that we don't even know if Amari Hampton's going to be a star running back. He could be, but I think you're also going to say Boyd has got a shot to be a star running back just as much as him. And I know Hampton's a little bit better, probably has a little bit better, numbers, or at least, look or, size, whatever you want to put it at. But at the same part, I mean, if I can get Boyd in the second round or the 12th pick, take Amari Hampton, I'm going to go ahead and take Boyd in the second round. Cutting ahead up to 21 and 22. That's where we see the wide receivers start to go, with Egbuka going to Pittsburgh, and the Chargers taking McMillan there at 22. So they are both off the board before we get to pick number 25, the Houston Texans. And this is where Kelvin Banks comes off the board at 25. At 25. He thinks that he's going to fall all the way down to 25. I just don't see it. I know that this feels like he's really the one pushing the narrative that Kelvin Banks is going to slip. And in this, what he mentions is he thinks he's going to be shorter than 6'4". So he's saying he can't really be a tackle. So he has to be a guard. So that'll knock him down, which I don't necessarily buy into because he's blocked NFL players at the left tackle position at a very high clip for the years he's been at Texas. So I don't know if you really have to fall into this mold. This feels like a very Mel Kiper thing that he sits on it and he says, I think he's 6'3", so he's a guard, and guards don't get drafted that early. So I think he's picked 25. I still don't buy it. This doesn't feel right. I think it'll probably be somewhat corrected at the combine, but we'll see. That'll be the interesting one. Everyone will be looking. That's on Sunday, I believe, the offensive lineman. So I don't know if we'll get the measurements before then, but that is, this feels like a lot of hate more than it is a real take.
This is an absolute joke to me. I can't see how the guy who won all the awards for the best offensive lineman in the country, playing left tackle in the hardest conference in America, well, arguably now with the Big Ten, it's right there, but still, he did everything, literally everything in his career to prove that he is one of, if not, the top two best offensive tackles in the country. And you're going to slide him all the way down because you're not really sure if he's 6'4", and like he had a couple injuries, at the very end of the season, and and all that kind of stuff. Like what are we talking about here? Left tackle is the most valuable position in the NFL outside of quarterback. Like maybe you can make an argument for, edge rusher or maybe corner. I don't know, but like I don't see how you can take the most valuable position outside of quarterback in the NFL and drop a guy all the way down because he might be an inch short and he sprained his ankle against Texas A&M. It just feels like he has something, like there's something there with Kelvin Banks that he just either doesn't like personally, or he thinks there's going to be an issue that's coming out later that he doesn't think is, or that he's not ready to talk about yet, which we all, as people who are close to the Texas program, know that there's nothing character-wise with Kelvin Banks.
No,
so,
and you're also talking about a guy who's been on people's draft radar for 3 years. This is somebody that, as a freshman, was on draft radars. They were already starting to scout him that many years ago. So it just feels crazy that all of a sudden he was a top 5 pick for 2.5 years, and he sprained his ankle, and now he is a, and I like being his bodyguard. 24 teams are not passing on him. I just don't see that. That's
absolutely not.
No, and if you're, there's so many teams before 25 that if they're there are calling everyone else being like, hey, we don't need a left tackle, but you want one, right? So go give us, and we'll give you, you can go get Kelvin Banks. There's blatant. You're not calling the Chiefs saying, we saw what happened to you in the Super Bowl. You want to shore up that offensive line? Here, go ahead. Give us something good.
Or the Cowboys, who are in desperate need of offensive linemen. They desperately need a left tackle.
Basically every team needs offensive linemen. Always. There's no one who doesn't need it.
But there's no way that the Dallas Cowboys are going to pass on the guy who is considered one of the top 2 tackles over the last 3 seasons in college football for a potentially second-round running back who most people have going in the second round or late first round, when they can just go get Kelvin Banks and then wait until round 2 and draft Quinshon Judkins or Caleb Johnson, or go into the 3rd round and draft Cam Scatterbo. Like the math isn't mathing. And that's like the Cowboys are historically good at picking offensive line. Like outside of Tyler Guyton last year, which was a hiccup, they're historically good at drafting offensive linemen in the 1st round. That is arguably their biggest strength in drafting is offensive line. So the fact that they would pass on somebody who seems like that surefire of a successful NFL draft pick and let him slide all the way down into the mid-20s is bonkers to me. I just can't see it.
No, I don't see it happening either. And then we'll throw down to number 30, falls all the way to number 30 in this draft, where he's been going a lot higher in most other mock drafts as well. Jahdae Barron, he has going to Buffalo Bills. Of course, this is another steal for Buffalo. What's really interesting, but I don't get, he also puts into his mock draft at the end that this is one of his favorite players in the class. Jahdae Barron is. But he slips all the way to 30, even though everybody else has someone taking him higher. He has multiple other cornerbacks going ahead of him. He has a cornerback going to Washington, Maxwell Harrison from Kentucky, a pick before him.
Who's a great player, but he's not better than Jahdae Barron.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, I don't get, there's some guys I'm okay with, but I'm not going to take Thomas from Florida State. He has going before him.
Will Johnson, I can see.
Yeah, Will Johnson's okay. But yeah, Will Johnson, I think he has going 11th. Yeah, he has Will Johnson going 11th. He has 2 others. So I had three cornerbacks going before Jahdae Barron. I don't see that happening either. This feels a pretty slighted draft. He also does not have Matthew Golden in his 1st round. The wide receivers were the 2 that were taken there. This does feel a little bit more like this is for clicks for me. Mel Kiper is the guy who invented the industry. There wasn't mock drafts before him. And I know Rex St. Charles says mock drafts might be the biggest waste of time in history of mankind. That's what we do. We just waste people's time talking about sports. They're really fun. I enjoy mock drafts. I enjoy them a lot. I like NBA mock drafts, and I'll go read them all. There's some good insight in them, but you kind of look for trends in a lot of them too. You want to see what, people really feel like what's happening. Daniel Jeremiah has been really good on his hit rate is pretty good if you look at his versus the actual draft. So you want to look at some of those pieces. This one feels so out of left field, and it's maybe more line with some of the other guys that are behind paywalls that just put their their actual reasoning behind paywalls. But I'm not buying the Texas disrespect in this one. This feels like blatant disrespect.
It absolutely does. I think Mel Kiper has had one too many pumpkin pies or something. I don't know. I don't know what he's smoking here. The guys that I kind of look to, and all due respect to Mel, he invented the industry basically. He's been doing this for longer than anybody else. The two guys that I really look to when it comes to mock drafts and real insight into who may go where and the scouting combined with that and all those things are Daniel Jeremiah and Dane Brugler. And both of those guys have been very consistent that these Texas players are going higher. So,
yeah, no, this feels much more like an ESPN one than maybe, and it is what it is. But we wanted to throw that out there for you guys that there is some disrespect happening with Mel Kiper. Yeah, this does feel like you may get this. This may be in the history books too. Hopefully, we'll get a Kelvin Banks that we'll see him and he'll talk a bunch of trash about him, and then when Kelvin Banks is signing his third max contract, everyone will be laughing at Mel Kiper again and pulling out the clips of what a miss he said on draft day. Or hopefully we won't get the flip of that, and we'll get the Cowboys one of they drafted somebody and he says it's a great pick for them, and then it doesn't work out. We hope that's not the one we want to see, but that could happen as well. But speaking of draft and the combine, Quinn Ewers has announced that he is ready to go. He's been working out with Mike McCarthy, which I found a little bit interesting, that he has actually been working out, trying to get ready for the combine. So he will be throwing. He does not, this came after Shedeur Sanders said he would not. Ashton Janty said he's not doing drills, which I'm still curious. If you're not doing drills, do you still do like the 40 and the vertical and all that, or do you not do any of it?
I don't think you do. I think you just do the measurements, like the height, the weight, that kind of thing. You go through the medical evaluations and then you do the interviews, and that's it.
Yeah. So that is, but we'll see that. But Quinn said he'll be there. So he's been working out, bring in Mike McCarthy, which, look, Mike McCarthy's made quarterbacks look really good at points. Sometimes not as much, but sometimes he's made quarterbacks look really good. So I get that one. And then the news came out about the injury. And it's a little bit of shades of Sark telling us after the fact that Xavier Worthy had a broken hand for half the season. It's a little bit of that. And I know, Matt, you put this up on the Longhorns on SI about the injury, that what we had been told wasn't necessarily the full truth.
Right. So originally, Sark said that he strained his oblique against UTSA. And a strain is much different than what has come out recently. So Tom Pelissero reported that Quinn tore his oblique, which is much more severe, against Michigan towards the end of that game. I would guess he didn't say exactly when that came out or when that injury occurred. There was a point in which Quinn had a stellar first half in that game, and then things kind of tapered off in the second half, and it wasn't quite as consistent. So, it obviously happened at some point in that second half. But he battled through that injury all year long. And that, to me at least, that completely changes the narrative on everything that was wrong with Quinn this year. Because I was talking to my father earlier today, who's a physician, and he was telling me that when you have a torn oblique, just turning your body and getting the oomph on the pass and putting all of your weight into it and just all the motions that go into throwing a pass become that much more difficult, that much more painful. So maybe you can't put everything you have into a deep ball. Maybe you can't put everything you have into throwing across the middle and fitting it into a tight window. And those were some of the biggest knocks against Quinn all season long. So if that's the case, and that's the reason that he, was floating passes or not putting as much mustard on it as we thought he might. And there's some screenshots that I have on my phone somewhere that I'll have to send to you here once I find them, this afternoon, of him passing on throws that looked like they would be easy throws for an NFL quarterback. but he passed on it because he probably was not confident in his ability to get everything on the ball, so he had to dump it off. So to me, that completely changes the narrative on Quinn all season long, assuming this is true, which Tom Pelissero would not is as certified as it gets when it comes. Yeah, he's as certified as it gets when it comes to an NFL reporter. So if he's saying that, I believe it, and this changes everything to me, because if he's healthy and he's making those throws, maybe we're having a totally different conversation.
No, I agree. I think it does change a lot of things. It does also put into where there were minor injuries this year, and you maybe don't worry about the injury history of Quinn Ewers as much. I think it does put in that aspect that maybe if I'm an NFL, I'm like, he can't play a season. I mean, he was having the best game against Michigan and then gets hurt, and I get he'll play through it, but he's not the same quarterback when he's playing through it. So, we don't want him to have to play through these injuries, and it seems like he gets hurt every single season. So that's still going to worry me. And this is the news that came out that really is going to ignite the people that were on the Arch bandwagon all last year. How do you keep playing him? And I understand why you keep playing. Listen, I get it. You make promises. You have things. This is about the long-term, what's great for the team, and the short-term. This is the thing I had to tell people at the end of the season multiple times. I'd be hanging out with friends or whatever, and then somebody would just be like, put an Arch, and I go, Arch is not Magic. I get he's going to be a really good player. He's not Magic. He's not going to walk in and throw 17 straight passes for touchdowns. It's not how it works. I get he's done something similar to that before. But
that's the lore, though.
That's the lore. I get that. So I think he's going to be really great. I always look back to that to Garrett Gilbert, and how much that destroyed him, that national championship game when Colt goes down and he gets shoved in against the best other team in the nation and throws 4 interceptions, and they still are in the game, but he throws 4 interceptions in that game. And it just felt like he never really had the confidence again after that at Texas, and had to go away from all of it because he couldn't outlive that. And for a young gunslinger like Arch, you always worried about that a little bit, was him coming out only really playing against teams that were not conference opponents and not playing against really top level guys, and worrying a little bit about maybe he gets ahead of himself and one pick leads to a second pick. And now you're at the point of Quinn's on the bench. You can't put him back in, but we got 2 picks. So what do we do now? Do we leave him back out there? And that was always a little bit of the worry. I think that's another one of the reasons why Sark said, I don't want to put that out. And I don't want to necessarily put him out there and risk having that when he's young enough. And the plan has been start Quinn Ewers. Arch will start next year. That's been the plan from day one. So we don't need to change that. I don't know if it gives us a better chance to win, because Quinn still got you to the playoffs. Quinn still did all of these things. But yeah, it's an interesting report, because you wonder how bad the tear. It can't have been that bad that they were okay with letting him play. And was it that they knew it was a tear from day one, or they thought it was a strain, and then a little bit later when it didn't get better, they did more testing and found out that it wasn't just a strain? I'm curious to know, because this is, I know Sark is historically not going to tell you he wants to keep it as close to the best as possible. We get that. I understand that. I understand that everybody in college football now is very paranoid about anybody going after their players or anything like that. But it's frustrating, isn't it, when you don't hear these things, and then at the end of the season, Sark goes, by the way, he actually had a torn oblique. He was hurt all season. So he hasn't been good until and he was able to stop. We probably should have sat him a few more games and tried to get him healthy, but we didn't know if it was ever going to get healthy. So we just said, screw it. Let's put him back out there. He can still throw the football. And, with Xavier Worthy, we had the same. Why are you throwing the ball over and over to a guy that can't catch with one hand? And, is this a Sark issue at a point that he is continually beating his head against the wall with players? Or are you on board with this logic, because this is how you get big recruits to play for you? You trust them in those moments. You let them play through pain.
I'm totally on board with this for the reason that, one, I don't think he would have put Quinn out there if he didn't think that he was the best, giving them the best chance to win.
Yeah.
I don't think that he would have risked Quinn's long-term career. I think if either of those things were the case, he would not have been playing. I think that if you're getting into the meat of your SEC schedule and you don't think that Arch is ready for that, and you know that Quinn is ready for that, then you just go ahead and ride with it. I mean, look, despite having a torn oblique, Quinn still got you to the college football playoff semifinal and was a couple of plays away from getting you to the national title game. He gave you, he knew the playbook. He gave you your best chance to win. He was making all the adjustments at the line. Could Arch have potentially been ready for that? Maybe. We don't know, but we know Quinn was. We know that he gave you the best chance to win. I think that this also really endears players to Sark as well, because he says, look, you're my guy. I'm going to ride with you. That's the end of the story. And I don't care what the outside noise is. I don't care what anybody else is saying. This is what's best for you. This is what's best for us. Let's trust the process. And then here's another thing too, in terms of Quinn just himself. Imagine how much differently NFL teams are going to look at him, knowing that he toughed out that injury through the entire year and still had the year that he had. That level of toughness does not come around very often. I'm not saying that Shedeur Sanders is not a tough player, but I'm just going to use him as an example. Do we think that if Shedeur Sanders had a torn oblique that he would have had the same season that he had, or that he would have been able to play through the entire season? We don't know. I mean, but we know Quinn did it. And when you're at the NFL, when you're at the NFL level and you're getting, you have a history of injuries in the past, but if you're getting hit and you're constantly under pressure and you're dealing with nagging stuff, you want a player who's proven that he can go out there and get it done despite all the little things. That's what guys like Brett Favre did. That's what guys like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady did. So I think that speaks really highly of Quinn, and it's probably going to help his draft stock at the end. And working with Mike McCarthy, who has worked with some of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, is probably a little bonus too.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's parts of it too, talking with Mike McCarthy, that I'm sure he's working him through what some of these interviews are going to be like too, because it changes what the interview is now. How hurt were you? What pain level were you at? Why were you not throwing this pass? And you can open up a little bit more about it because now it's out there. But yeah, it's just a really, like Quinn Ewers is one of those guys. Normally when you have those guys that are really tough, they're a little bit more vocal about it, or they have a cheering section that's a little bit more vocal about it, that, this guy's really playing tough and he's playing hurt. And it really never came out. Quinn had always felt like he wanted everyone to believe that he was 100% healthy and ready to go. And apparently it was not the case, which, impressive for him that he was able to pull it off. I think it'll endear him to some teams. If you look at like a Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm sure it'll endear him to the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin a little bit more, which is a team that needs a quarterback and may take somebody that's a project that they don't feel has to play next year, which I feel Quinn is much more in that camp than somebody who's ready to go day one. But you can put there, but then, another franchise like the Jets is probably going to look at that, and Woody Johnson will say, well, he's been hurt every year, and I don't want a quarterback who's hurt. We just had Aaron Rodgers. He was hurt. So we need to get somebody who's doesn't get injured as much. So let's go ahead and get somebody else. I think that depends on what management you're going to be looking at, but it's just a really interesting piece that we keep getting these, that we don't, as much as there's the SEC injury report every week and we're supposed to be getting it, there seems to be enough going on. And I'll say hats off to the medical staff at Texas and all the people who are in the know for keeping a secret. Good job, guys. Good job, you guys.
Well, I would also say, as somebody who's been around athletic training staffs a whole lot in my life, hats off to them for keeping Quinn up this entire year. I mean, if he's having to battle through that, it speaks very highly of the Texas medical staff, which we know is one of the best in the country. But that's one thing. And then another thing is, there are going to be teams that are afraid of drafting a guy who has an injury history. That's absolutely true. And those are probably the teams that are going to end up passing on him. But I would struggle to think, off the top of my head, I can't think of a single quarterback in this NFL draft. Maybe Will Howard, Dylan Gabriel might be up there. But in terms of football IQ and being able to diagnose defenses and make checks at the line and all those different things, please tell me a quarterback in the country who's better than that in Quinn Ewers in 2024. I would love to hear it, because I can't think of one. And that's going to be something that teams like, Pittsburgh or another team who doesn't necessarily need a quarterback, like emergency quarterback, we need a guy who can play in right now. That's going to be something that those teams look at and be like, hey, if we can get this guy in our system and he can learn behind our coaching staff and behind our starter for a year or two, he's going to have this thing dialed. So that's going to work really well for him as well.
All right. Why don't we take a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll come back. We'll get into some more NFL talk. There's a couple stories I want to get into there. I also want to talk about the spring event. CDC had some more comments about what that is, or at least when it's going to be. So we can talk a little bit more about that. Basketball, Lenardi put out his new bracketology. Maybe we'll get into some Mavs and Lakers. And then Bryce Harper got a tattoo, which I thought was really fun. And I want to ask about tattoos for everybody. So we'll get into that a little bit too if we have some time. But let's get a little word from our sponsors here on Open Gym, here on Texas Sports Unfiltered.
The best sports bar in Austin, Texas, USA, America is Cover 3. They've got everything you're looking for in a great sports bar. TVs everywhere, so there's not a bad seat in the house, and they've got the right games on. You're not going to have to ask the bartenders, the waitresses, the waiters for the game that you want to watch. They know the games that you want to watch, and the food. My goodness, that's what separates Cover 3 from the other sports bars out there. An upscale menu with tons of great items. You got to try the Sean Adams prime rib sandwich. They've got the filet mignon. They've got the fish tacos. Of course, all of the sports bar classics like wings and nachos as well. Great burgers, great salads. I'm telling you, something for everyone. Of course, the full bar happy hour prices, the weekend brunch. You got to check them out. Anderson Lane, Round Rock, and San Antonio. And, of course, Cover 2, 183 and Lake Creek. It's Cover 3, dining, spirits, sports.
Hi, I'm Dan Covert with my wife Hayden. Welcome to Covert BK.
Our newest location in the gorgeous Hill Country includes Buick, GMC, Cadillac, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, and hundreds of pre-owned and certified vehicles for you to choose from. We have 3 service departments that are ready to take care of your car, truck, or SUV with 86 service bays to accommodate any repair and get you in and out quickly. Come visit us today to select the vehicle you've been dreaming about.
Covert, born and raised in Austin.
Shout out to Leaf Landscape Supply, a full service and wholesale and retail plant nursery and landscape supplier here in the ATX. They have 2 terrific locations. Y'all should check both of them out. If you're up north, hit up the one on Pond Springs Road. If you're down south, hit up the one off Monterey Oaks and 290. If you're looking for large quantities of supplies to fulfill any landscaping job, trendy house plants, a collection of specialty plants and rare plants, Leaf Landscape Supplies, your one-stop shop for everything you need. Go to their website at leaflandscapesupply.com so you can check it out before you get there what you want. And when you do get there and you're in the checkout line, let them know your boy Zay Collier put you on, the boys at Texas Sports Unfiltered, and you get 10% off. 10% off, can't beat that at Leaf Landscape Supply.
Hi, this is Tom McKay, owner of Audiovisual Consultations.
I got this, Dad. This is Camilla McKay, and my dad can help with any TV or stereo needs you have around your house. Just call him, and he will come to you with advice and a great price. And the guys that work for him are awesome. They can install anything, anywhere. So, like my dad says, just relax and smile. We handle all the work.
So just give us a call at 255-8678 or on the web at avconsultations.com.
All right, back here on Open Gym on Texas Sports Unfiltered. I just saw a little video of the new general manager of the Jaguars. He's 34 years old. He looks 2020. He looks so young. Again, I'm getting older, so I think but that guy, he looks really, really young.
He does. So I'm 37. I still consider myself rather young. just my personality, and I guess I'm just a kid in a 37-year-old's body. It is bizarre to me that there's a guy who is younger than me who is a general manager of an NFL franchise. I mean, that's crazy to me. And he looks like he's 24 years old. That's going to be a meme for a while, but good for him.
No, I mean, hey, we'll see if he's able to bring new and fresh ideas. I think they were just Khan was like, I don't plan to hire anybody else for the next 50 years. So you can be here because you're that young. You can just work here until I'm dead and it'll be fine. But yeah, very, very weird hiring. And then we also saw the Rob Gronkowski. Did you see the news that he was possibly considering a comeback, and that has already been debunked? That has already been said that people
Thank
are
God.
like, no, apparently somebody listened to Rob Gronkowski say something very loose of, I still train and I could still make a comeback. And they were like, oh, he's going to come back. He's like, no, I'm making good money being an announcer now. I'm fine. I don't need to come back because you're not going to pay him enough. NFL money's not NBA money. So you're going to pay him like $2 million a year. He probably makes close to $1 million doing Fox right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And all of his other projects, I'm pretty sure he's okay not taking the hits and not getting any more CTE. I want to get
That's the last guy that needs more CTE too.
I mean, he wasn't starting with a lot, so can't lose any more of it. Let's go over to a little NFL talk as we get into it, as we get closer to the combine. The GM with the Jaguars were just talking about, he's at the combine right now as coaches and players are starting to gather at the combine to get ready to evaluate these players and do the interviews. So they're all getting set. So you're getting a lot more interviews from there. But we did get the news about Matt Stafford and where he could possibly be headed. That Matt Stafford and the Rams, it felt like there was no real problem. Everyone is reporting that there's still no bad blood between these two teams. However, Matt Stafford is looking for a contract for what he feels he is worth, which is around $50 million a year, more guaranteed money, signing bonus, all of that for him to stay in there. And he knows there's other teams willing to do it. And so right now, the Rams have told him he is allowed to go search for other players, search for other teams that would be open to making a trade and what they would offer. His agent's going to look for trades right now. Now, if those don't exist, the negotiations will change and they'll lower that number a little bit. But this has become a real reality for Matthew Stafford. He could end up on another team. They let go of Cooper Kupp as well. So, you lose that number one target that's been part of it. And man, now it seems really weird that he could go, and you have to start looking around the NFL and wondering who would shell out $50 million for Matthew Stafford right now. He's still playing good football, but he's 37 years old. The injuries are starting to mount up a little bit more for him, that it feels like he's going to miss a couple of games each season. As most quarterbacks, as they get older, it's harder and harder to stay on the field. So it feels like, unless you have an offensive line that's really going to be set out and doing well, which most of these teams have $50 million to pay a quarterback in free agency, probably don't. Are there any places that you could see Matt Stafford ending up?
I mean, there are a couple that come to mind. Whether or not they're willing to invest $50 million in him is another question, but the Raiders are obviously a team that really need a quarterback. The Giants and the Jets both really need a quarterback. Cleveland, I think, needs a quarterback, but also they have so much money wrapped up in Deshaun Watson that doesn't feel like a realistic possibility at this point. The Vikings would be a good fit for him. Let me think. The Carolina Panthers are – I don't know if they're ready for Bryce Young or not, but they seem to be riding with him.
If you're paying him $50 million, you're not paying him to not a 1-year deal. He probably wants 3 or 4 years on that deal.
Yeah.
So if you're going to say, is this somebody that goes in? I mean, it just feels like there's not a ton of teams. Now, the Titans could fall into that role. The Titans are a team that has the number 1 overall pick. So they could say, we're not going to give you that pick, clearly, but we give you a future pick. We can get Matt Stafford, who's going to be our quarterback of the future. We can draft somebody with that number 1 overall pick and try and expedite a rebuild pretty quickly and use our draft position to expedite, maybe make a couple other trades, but bring in Matt Stafford. I feel like that's a possibility that you can see. I don't know how bad their cap situation is, but I can't imagine it's terrible because they really haven't had that many great players recently. So I don't imagine it would be that bad. The Steelers are an interesting one. I know they didn't pay a quarterback at all last year, but the Steelers are a really interesting team in that conversation that continues to make the playoffs, and kind of like the Rams feel like they may be a piece away. I don't know if that feels like a fit for them, but they're looking at any and all options over there. If you go into that, I don't see the Raiders being an actual choice. I just don't feel like that's a real team for, they're just so far away. So you could get him, but you're delaying anything. You're not going to win with him. So you're going to pay him $50 million to be okay for a couple years, which is maybe what they want. Who knows? Those Vegas teams are weird. I feel like Mark Davis wants to win. Tom Brady bought in. Pete Carroll's there. So it feels like they're ready to try and build a culture. And I don't know, bringing Matt Stafford in does that for you. I don't think the Jets are going to be a team that does that gamble 2 years in a row or 3, 2 times in a row. Maybe Woody Johnson is, but it doesn't feel like they're going to try and make that, or at least not give up much for him. I mean, you may say we'll pay him $50 million, but we'd like to give up a 4th round pick for him at this point, because we're kind of already behind the 8 ball. And I believe they're having to pay stuff out of Aaron Rodgers' contract still, so they might not even be able to make that move happen. And then it's, the Giants are a possibility, but they, if it's kind of the same as the Titans. Do you use that number 3 pick and you take Travis Hunter and try and entice Matt Stafford that you want to come play in? Because now we've got Travis Hunter and
Malik Neighbors.
Malik Neighbors that are on that wide receiver, and you can come in and we'll throw it up. We don't have an offensive line or running game, but you've got 2 wide receivers, so that'll be fun. So it doesn't, and then once you get outside of that, it really cuts down to there's not as many. The Vikings, I don't think are going to do it because they've drafted a quarterback that hasn't played for them yet. And if you're signing Matt Stafford, it's probably a longer-term rental than that. So I wouldn't see it there. The Saints technically could if Kellen Moore comes in and says, I really want a new quarterback. Derek Carr, we're going to get rid of, and let's go get Matt Stafford. That's a maybe. But there's not a lot of places.
The Saints feel kind of complicated too, just because of their cap situation and the Derek Carr thing. So the one team that really catches my ear off the list that you just dropped is the Steelers. And here's why. Maybe, maybe they want a quarterback for the long term, that they want to draft and develop or whatever. But in terms of a culture fit and a mentality fit, I don't know that there's a better fit for Matthew Stafford than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Simply speaking, because for my money, and obviously I'm a little biased because I went to high school with the guy and I'm a big fan of his, but the track record kind of proves it as well. For my money, I think Matthew Stafford is the toughest son of a bitch in the NFL, especially a quarterback. So if you're Pittsburgh and you're in the Steel City, he's a guy that fan base will really endear themselves to. He's going to come in there. He's going to give it his all. And he's going to play every single down that he possibly can. He's going to fight through injuries. And they've got sort of a mix of talent that they can be successful. They are just a couple of pieces away from competing. So if you can come in and get a guy who I still think is a top 10 NFL quarterback when he's healthy and he's playing his best football, that seems like a great fit to me. And I would, as much as my Cowboys fandom is slipping away, I might start to lean towards the Steelers if that happens, which is saying something.
If you're going to chip, that's not a place you can go as a Cowboys fan, I feel like there's too much bad blood in that you don't want to go. I think the best troll job in the world is if you went back to Detroit, but that's just for fun. If you went back there now that they're good. But yeah, I mean, for me, it really falls down to just a couple of teams because it doesn't feel like a lot of these are going to be in the position to be able to do something. And I think it's the Steelers really are the only team that feels like they can compete this season. And, if they're able to keep a pick in the first round and this season and be able to build around that, it'd be really interesting to see what they could do, because the only other teams I see are the Giants and the Titans, which are guys that could try and expedite a rebuild in today's world. We know the Giants are trying to get more cash, so they're able to push. The Adams, who still own the Titans, are not a cash-rich franchise. That's not a team that has a ton of cash on hand to be able to go out and do the free agent signing. The Giants are a lot easier to do, to go out and spend that money, which also plays into, does Matt Stafford want a big signing bonus? That contract has to be done before he comes over and you make the trade. And if he wants a big contract, signing bonus as well, you're talking about a lot of money you're paying up front and draft picks. I don't know if the Titans are willing to do that. The Giants would be able to do that because they're trying to do it. It seems interesting. I'm really curious if this is the Rams are going to get away with being able to negotiate like this because no one else is going to go after him. And it's a real possibility in today's NFL. We've seen it a couple times. I'll tell you the other part is we'll see if this is if they have the solidarity the Ravens got. Because the Ravens got a lot of solidarity from the ownership that no one was even going to talk to Lamar Jackson. And as much as anybody wants to say that was collusion, there was something behind the scenes because, you want to believe that Atlanta couldn't use Lamar Jackson and then they trade everything and pay all this money to Kirk Cousins and then they draft the quarterback. You didn't want Lamar Jackson? Feels like you could have just had Lamar Jackson and that would have been great. Maybe there will be a point where they know, the owners kind of have an unspoken agreement. We don't go after each other's quarterbacks unless we're supposed to. That this is a test the market and we're going to lower your price to 35 and then we feel fine with that. And we'll give you the contract. But this is going to be one to keep an eye on because right now there's not a lot of suitors, but all it takes is one suitor to come after you hard enough. And then the Rams have to actually back up what their words are. And you like to see the NFL be competitive enough that they are actually going to try and call the bluff of the Rams. And somebody will come out and say, oh, no, we'll offer him it. And make the Rams have to be the bad guys instead of being able to get away with it.
As a Cowboys fan, and this is a hot take, I would trade Dak Prescott to LA for Matt Stafford straight up. I might be the only person on earth who thinks that. Maybe I'm not, but there's good.
I don't think you're the only person. There's a lot of Dak haters out there who'd be thrilled to get rid of him anyway, for form or fashion.
Yeah, and to have a guy that battles through injuries as opposed to a guy that's missing half the season every year or every other year would probably be a little bit, enticing to Cowboys fans. But listen, I'm confident that Matt Stafford will at least have some kind of market because if you go around the league and you talk to other quarterbacks or other coaches or other owners, defensive coordinators, whatever the case may be, he is always at the top of their list as one of the smartest, most terrifying quarterbacks they have to face every year, every game. So I feel like there's going to be a market out there. It's just a matter of whether it's a place that he would be okay going to. I don't know if he has a no trade clause in his contract. I'd have to look that up. But I think that his relationship with the Rams is good enough where they're not just going to ship him anywhere. And his relationship with Sean McVay is certainly that good. And I think Sean McVay has a lot of pull in that front office, and him and the GM and the ownership group are pretty tight. So I do think there will be a market. It's just a matter of whether or not the Rams feel they can get enough back, and it will be a good fit for Stafford, and it'll be a good fit for them, and all these different things. So it is very complicated. I hope he ends up in the right place, and I would love to see him go back to LA. I know he loves it there. I've talked to some of his friends about it, and he really does enjoy it out there. His family loves it out there. His wife is a big fan of the media party out there. So
yeah.
That seems like the place that he wants to be, but we'll see where it goes. It's one of the more interesting storylines in the NFL this offseason for sure, and he's probably the biggest name quarterback that's going to be talked about. So.
Yeah, I mean, the cycle doesn't move that much at this point. There's not a lot of free agent quarterbacks that are really going to move the needle. So if you put it in there, if you're a team that doesn't get one of the two quarterbacks in this draft that you feel can start for you next season, just Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I mean, Jackson Dart maybe falls into some people's that they feel he can start next season. But if you don't have that, you may want to go. I don't think he is, but I'll say that Matt Stafford is possible in that one. Then we also got the news that the Packers, it was originally reported that it was that we didn't know that it was just an unnamed team. The team got named later as the Green Bay Packers, and they have pushed to outlaw the tush push. It was brought up a year ago too, I remember, that we talked about that there was teams thinking about trying to bring up the issue to ban it. The Packers have now come out and said it. I don't know their full argument for trying to ban the tush push. I know that it is There is injury issues, in a league that talks about CTE, shoving a quarterback head first into people feels like they can try and say that this is an injury risk as everybody's running into each other and jamming. The push had been banned at points in the NFL and in college football, and then kind of they went away from it again because it was really, really hard to call. You couldn't tell if someone was pushing or not, and sometimes it felt like you didn't want to ruin a great play because somebody at the end of the game or at the end of the play kind of gave them an extra 2 yards on a 60-yard run, and an offensive lineman, somebody came up and pushed him at the end, and that technically is not there. I remember there was a Notre Dame USC game where Reggie Bush got pushed in, and all the Notre Dame fans got up in arms about it because it was technically illegal. So this tush push, you're is a Dallas fan. The Eagles have really pushed it. It helps to have a guy that can squat, 900 pounds or whatever he squats. And, you did lose your starting center, which was a big piece of it, but they made it work a bunch of times this year. No other team has really figured out the way to make it work the same way as Philadelphia. So I get why certain teams, I don't get why other teams are not like, yeah, let's get rid of it. It doesn't really work for anybody else. The quarterback sneak is what everybody else pretty much does. People try the tush push at points, but it feels like it doesn't. The success rate goes down immensely on other teams.
I think it's the most annoying play in the NFL because it's when you get to a 3rd and 1 or a 4th and inches or even really 4th and a yard and a half or whatever. Excuse me. I think that it's sort of an unfair advantage for the Eagles. And listen, that's not saying that they're at fault for running this play, because if you've had enough of it, stop it. Figure out a way to stop it. If they can figure out a way to run it successfully, this is the highest level of football. You should be able to figure out a way to stop it. So the Eagles should run this as much as they possibly can until people figure out how to stop it or it gets outlawed. There is a reason, like you said, that other teams aren't running this as often, is because they can't figure out how to do it. And until other teams figure out how to do it, it becomes a massive problem across the NFL. I have a hard time seeing it be outlawed. The thing with the injuries is interesting to me because it's not just the quarterback going head first. When you look at the real meat of that play on the offensive line and the defensive line, the offensive linemen are getting their heads down all the way. Like there could be neck injury issues there, and all kinds of different things. So that's something the NFL could definitely take a look at. As much as I would love to see it outlawed, because I hate seeing it run against the Cowboys 37 times in one game, it's very hard to make the argument unless you can find a definitive medical risk in running that play that everybody agrees on unanimously that there's going to be any way that this get outlawed. So, I mean, hey, more power to the Eagles, as much as I hate to say it.
No, I agree with you. I don't think it's going to get outlawed, at least not this season. But yeah, and I mean, that's the injury is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't run it in the first place, is they just say, I don't want to use my quarterback that way. It feels like a really dangerous way to pick up a yard because, my guy is not built like Jalen Hurts is. So I'm not putting a more fragile quarterback or just a quarterback that's just not. I mean, Jalen Hurts is a beast of a man. So if you go out there and you go, he's a lot bigger of a guy, then I can understand why teams are upset about it, because I guess the Packers are like, Jordan Love, we're never running this play, so we can go ahead and get rid of it. I don't think they'll ban it. It doesn't bother me either way if they do or they don't. I think if they do, they'll just find another way to make it work. And the wording of it's going to be really weird, because you have to say, is it you can't aid the runner? Because now that's a lot of people aid the runner. Is it that play specifically? But if you do it to the right guard, you can do it now, or you know what I mean? It feels like, and can you do it with a running back? Because there was kind of plays like that where I've seen some teams try and do it with a running back, which is, it takes too long to develop to really work. But you've seen the hand it off to a fullback or the running back pushes, or you line the running back up in front and he does it and the fullback pushes him from behind and tries to get it through. I don't know what you actually outlaw in it. So I don't know if there's a clear and easy way until somebody does get hurt, which inevitably that's how most rules in the NFL are written now, is somebody gets hurt, all the owners freak out, because that's $70 million that I'm paying this season that's sitting on the bench, and I'm losing all this money in revenue because this guy's hurt. because of some play like that. Now the question is, if you called it, so it's your fault, you shouldn't be calling it anymore. I mean, it's a super annoying play, but it's like a lot of things in basketball that I'll watch where you watch it and it's, you know, the James Harden double step back, which always seemed like a travel.
It's
they
a travel.
Can explain how it wasn't that one. You're like, yeah, that shouldn't be legal because it looks like a travel. You're like, no, but it's not because of this weird loophole of how he picks the ball up when he does it. You're like, yeah, we don't need that though. Nobody wants to watch this. No one wants to watch a guy skirt the rules, unless you're an Oklahoma City Thunder fan and then get them free throws. Other than that, you don't necessarily want to watch it. But yeah, I'm not a huge proponent of the tush push, but at the same part, I don't see it changing. I don't see it changing during these meetings. But we'll cover more NFL as we keep rolling along because it is we're getting to the combine and then free agency will start, and that's when we can start looking at what the Texans and Cowboys can do. I know what Stephen Jones has said, they're going to be selectively aggressive. Is that the phrase he used?
That's just what's the word for it? I mean, that's
bullshit.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
It's just one of those things where it's like coach speak when a coach is talking about like he's making up all these different phrases and words for all these things that make no sense. It's just another way for the Cowboys to be like, yeah, we're going to be the same we've been all year or over the last decade, 2 decades. We're just going to do the same stuff.
He's got to work on his Jerryisms because Jerry had, Jerry was, we were circling around the bowl. There's the glory hole remark, solid remark from Jerry Jones on that one. He's had a lot of really great lines. Stephen Jones just says things that are really annoying because you're like, I know what you mean, but it's not true. Like 29 other teams are doing this and you're acting like it's impossible. So you can't do that.
Well, I don't know that anybody needs more Jerryisms. I'm tired of the Jerryisms. I'm tired of listening to Jerry Jones do press conferences and run a football team. I have been for a long time, but my favorite Jerryism is probably we're all in. And then you go out and you don't do anything in the offseason. It kind of feels like that's what they're doing here with this. It's just a different name for it.
Oh man, the backup that happened because that was, I think Clarence Hill got him to say it. And then he basically had to be like, no, I panicked because a reporter was asking me about it. But we were never all in. We were never going to spend the money. We were never going to do any of these things. And yeah, we're still waiting on Dallas to just already pay Micah Parsons because it's the dumbest, easiest decision. There's either trade him or do it, but I don't think you're working a Luka Doncic, Nico Collins trade in the background or Nico Harrison trade in the background where you're going to go ahead and make that happen. So go ahead and just re-sign him. It'll help your cap situation. It'll help get you a better deal. All these things are really easy. Just go ahead and get that done now, and then we can move ahead. But we know that won't be the case. I do want to talk about press conferences. CDC is going to be doing his town hall tomorrow night. But we've gotten a little bit more news. I tweeted out on Friday, tagging him in it, asking about or stating that you wanted to see something, a free event, happen for the fans instead of the spring game, since Sark said the spring game was canceled. He says, I think you'll be happy. Announcement forthcoming. So we've seen that. The report that we got on an interview he did today, I believe, was that the event will most likely happen during the Texas A&M series here in Austin. So he's going to line it up, which that's April 25th through 27th. So that's around when the spring game would have been, around then. Normally games in April, so it's same month. But April 25th to 27th is the Texas A&M series. I like that. I think that's a fun way to make it a much more crazy environment down there. I know that people who are trying to park at baseball are going to be even more pissed off than they already are at how the parking is, which I don't know if you've seen that at all, Matt, yet. But the parking garage that used to be open for people to park at right next to Dishwalk, they've had to give too much of the housing that's around there. So it is only for season pass holders who already have their passes. There's no game day parking there anymore, like for just people driving up. So everybody has to park like on the other side of 35 now. So people are pretty pissed off about it. On a day like today, when Texas plays, I don't think it's as big of a deal. The weather's nice. it won't be as crazy. I know for some people it's probably a little bit harder. They got shuttles though for those people, so maybe it won't be as bad, but it's a change of pace and no one likes that. And shout out my buddy AJ Vallejo playing out there in left field tonight, part of Occupy Left Field. So if you're going to go down to the game, go check out my buddy AJ. I think that's starting here in 10-15 minutes. So you can go say hey to him and go check him out play a little bit. But Speedy C spring event. Now, this will be the question. Now, we believe there's going to be meet and greets, that the players will be around, but we don't necessarily know full force what is going to be happening at this event. Will people be in the stadium? Will it just be a tailgate? Will there be an event happening within there? It's easy. The tailgate makes you a lot of money, so that's easy to open up. You get all your sponsors and have a good time there. You have your fire sale, which they do a lot at the spring game. Put all your merch out and have everybody go buy stuff. That's easy. But then the harder part is what you actually have to put on in the show. That's where I'm curious what he's going to do now. And Matt, I'd love to get your opinion. Anyone on the chat, on the text line, if you guys have opinions of what you want to see. The alumni game is not great. None of the ideas are great over a spring game, but the alumni game is probably one of the things that makes a sense, as having all these players in, and then, everybody kind of makes their way over to the dish to go for that game. And you have a big whole atmosphere of we're playing the Aggies and we got all these legends of football. And then maybe you can even have a baseball player or basketball or, whoever playing in this game with some of the players of today. That one makes sense to me. Flag football, maybe drills with the kids. There's been a couple things thrown out there. What are you thinking about?
So I've said this a couple times and over the last couple weeks, and I think what Ole Miss does is a real great example of how you can change everything. They did sort of a skills challenge, like almost NFL Combine, or like sort of NBA All-Star-esque sort of thing, where it's a bunch of players doing like skill challenges, and there was a dunk contest and bunch of interactions with the fans on the field and those kinds of, just making it fun and interactable, still fun to watch, still fun for the fans to do things. They get their autographs, they get to meet the players, all those kinds of things. I think that is an option you could look at. I like the alumni game thing as well, but I kind of go back to that Ole Miss thing because it also kind of reminds me of, with the timing of it, with the Texas Tech baseball series, that's something that Ole Miss loves to do. Is tag up the Grove Bowl, which is their spring game or spring event, with a baseball series. So the whole campus and town is sort of in this big huge event together. So that's something you could look at. You certainly have more real estate to occupy in Austin and around campus than they do over in Oxford. So I think that's a great option. But I trust CDC to come up with something fun. He's a smart guy. He's a creative guy. He'll find a way to keep fans happy, because I know that's at the top of his priority list. He's not going to let this be some big stinker. No, he's going to figure it out.
And I'm sure that there's all these different people lobbying for different things, because I know the spring game was always somewhat of a pain for some of the support staff that did football and baseball, because they didn't really intersect a ton. So you could do both sports. And, the people that worked at Dishfalk also did stuff at DKR. And then they would have a day where you had to do both. So it'll be interesting to see if those guys are trying to leverage, like, at least give us like 2 hours in between what we're doing here, where we got to run the jump, the Godzillatron or whatever it is, and where we got to do, make sure we have all the media's computers up and running and all of that. I know when I would do it with Craig Way, he would, that would always be the fun of, we'd do the spring game and he'd be like, cool. And you'd go walk out of DKR, hop in a golf cart, and be driven over to baseball to do the baseball game that they'd normally be playing that same day. So, you'd have to deal with some of those, but I think there's ways to do it. He has a town hall tomorrow. So he's talked about it now. He responded to my tweet on Friday. He did an interview talking about it today. It feels like it's probably getting close, that it's getting a little bit closer. Like Roy says, have a Battle of the Network Stars type event with all the teams that are not in season. This is where the problem lies, Roy. And this is where all of these ideas fall into one crucial snag, which is one of the main real reasons you keep hearing of why we're not having a spring game. Because I like your idea, Roy. I like bringing in the other sports. Having women's basketball out there after the season they're having, and volleyball, and these other teams that are killing it, swimming and diving, that are killing it right now, having great seasons, and having them get a little of that shine from Texas football and kind of lifting everything up. And you can have recruits from those as well to show them what Texas can do. The problem is those kids might want NIL for it too. And that's kind of where we've hit the wall. And that's what I keep hearing about the spring game is, it's not necessarily even Texas players, but it's across the board. Agents are basically calling up right after a spring game and a guy catches 3 or 4 passes. And all of a sudden that guy deserves more money because now all these people really liked him and you saw what he can do. And there's another transfer portal coming up. And so we're going to try and hold your feet over the fire for whatever extra money. And so, that one falls into for the women's basketball team or the men's basketball team, which the men's basketball team you can't even have, not because they're not playing well, but that team changes every year now. So I don't know who you have out there. Trey Johnson will already be trying to get to the NBA. I don't know, no, it will be available by April. They'll all be moved on to their next things. But no, I like the idea. I think if there's people that are down to do it, it would be a great cross-breeding. And if you can get some sponsors to come in and give them a little bit of money, just to say, here's a little bit. We're not going to give you another, $20,000, but here's, $2,000, $3,000. It's community outreach. And it's a lot of money. And, a lot of people would love to have it. I get it. This is the game now. And, if you see a giant event with all these people and we want you to be the centerpiece of it, you're not doing that for free anymore. We burned that bridge because we took advantage of you for way, way too long. We rigged the system. We screwed you over for a long time, not giving you any returns for what when we started to make money. And we're getting screwed because we didn't do it. And because the NCAA is a terrible organization who can't run anything and shouldn't still be there. And there should be somebody with a pair that can go in there and make some real decisions and put down some guidelines so we can get to a better place in all of this. But until that happens, you kind of have to play the game. And Texas has done a really good job playing the game. But that is the question of all these things you're putting together. And in all reality, the alumni game, probably have to pay a little bit to get. So there's money involved in it all. That's where I'm curious what CDC comes up with. I like the skills challenge idea because you can narrow it down a little bit more where you're not necessarily getting it, you're not necessarily, having, no one's going to show out to an extreme level to where you don't see, man, that wide receiver 5, Jonte Cook, we'll just use as an example, catch 6 passes and looks amazing. And he's probably your wide receiver 1. Now he wants wide receiver 1 money. And that's just using his name because he's not here anymore. But if you have those types of things, I think the wide receiver, you go, well, you want a skills challenge. That's not game time. We can't give you any, we're not giving you more for that. But I like it. I just think it's going to be interesting to see if he comes out this week and actually gives us a real somewhat of a guideline of what's going to be happening. Because I think the longer they extend this out, you got till April, but if no one knows what's happening midway through March, I think maybe he'll make it antsy that this is just going to be a cash grab at the end of the day, where it's like, you can come in for free and get to our sale. And we have a big thing around selling. We're just going to sell you a lot of stuff. I think that's where you're just going to have to make sure you don't do that. You give them still a product, but we'll see. I mean, it may just be a meet and greet. It could just be that at the end of the day.
I would have a very hard time believing that he won't have an answer because it's a very big question for fans and boosters alike that, we want to know what's coming, and he'll have something. It'll be, and I have full faith that it will be good. I really, really wish you could find a way to feasibly, introduce the other sports into it. I love that idea on its face. Because, the women's basketball team
they held Georgia to 26 points last night.
They're maybe this is a hot take because Texas was just, the football team was just in the college football playoff semifinal, but the women's basketball team might be the best sports program this year in Texas sports. And so they deserve everything they can get.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what they do when they get to the tournament. I hope they have a great. Yeah, because it was a weird game because they played like awful offense in the first half. That was just the first half of that game might have been some of the worst basketball you've ever seen in your life. It was 20-16 at the end of the first half. Mm-hmm. No one wants to. I mean, I love basketball. I can't stand, defensive struggles where teams are just missing a lot of shots, and it's just bad.
Yeah,
but Texas picked up in the second half and gets away. But they're playing amazing basketball right now.
Yeah, but it just runs into the issue that you're talking about, where like how do you give these kids an incentive to want to play in this thing? They're not just going to do it out of the good graces of their heart. They're tired. They want to have fun. They're in college. I don't think they want to spend their Saturday afternoon, signing autographs if they don't have to. But if you can find a way to make a financial incentive, great. Texas is extremely good at raising money, so I'm sure they could find a way to do that if that's what it came down to. But for the majority of the fans, they want to come out here and they want to see things that are football related because they're football starved, and they want to see what the team's going to look like next year in some capacity. So I think that the skills challenge is a very easy way to accomplish that without going over the top and putting guys in harm's way with a lifestyle game or whatever. It's just I as a college football traditionalist, I am very sad to see the spring game go by the wayside, just because I went to that game all the time growing up with my dad, and I went to the Grove Bowl all the time at Ole Miss when I was there as a student. So it's a thing that I always really enjoyed. But it's slowly moving that way in college football. And I know that the Washington coach was very adamant that we're going to have a spring game, despite what other programs are doing, kind of a veiled shot at Texas and USC and some of these other schools that aren't going to do it. But eventually his program's going to be just the next one that's going to nix it, which is unfortunate, but it is the way it is.
It is. Why don't we go ahead? We'll take our second break. I want to come back. We got some good news for Texas basketball. I think good news for Texas basketball. We'll talk about that. And Lenardi puts out his latest projections after the weekend. We'll get into that and a couple other stories to wrap it up here. If anything you guys want to talk about, throw it into the chat, throw it in the text line. If you've got any questions, anything you want to talk about, any breaking news we've missed somehow, you can throw that in there, and we'll get to that when we come back on the other side of this message from our sponsors that keep us rolling here at Texas Sports Unfiltered with Open Gym.
Hi, I'm Hayden Covert. Welcome to Covert Buick GMC of Bee Cave, your home in the Hill Country for new and pre-owned Buick and GMC vehicles. With beautiful inventory arriving daily, including the GMC Yukon, Sierra 1500, and Buick Enclave, you'll be certain to find the perfect vehicle at an incredible deal. Our service department is also open for all your vehicle maintenance needs. Visit us today for a test drive. Covert, born and raised in Austin. We are professional grade.
Altstadt Beer, the best beer that you can find all throughout the great state of Texas. Y'all know I've been a fan of Altstadt for years now, and if you try it, I think you will be too. If you've already tried it, you know exactly what I am talking about. Altstadt is brewed locally in Fredericksburg, but available all over the state of Texas. So if you're tuned in Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, it does not matter. You can find Altstadt at a local grocery store or liquor store. They've got a bunch of different brews, something for every beer drinker out there. The lager, the Kolsch, those are their two flagship beers, both award winners. They are fantastic. The Altstadt Light sacrifices on calories but does not sacrifice on the taste. They've got great pills, tons of great seasonals as well. I'm telling you, one sip and you won't go back to the other beers you've been drinking in the past. It is the official beer of BK. It should be the official beer of you as well. It's Altstadt Beer. No impurities, no regrets.
Hi, this is Tom McKay with Audiovisual Consultations. Today's home electronics can be a bit daunting. My company has spent the last 36 years making sure they are not. For those of you who have not experienced our services yet, we'd like to invite you to give us a try for all your home electronics needs. We carry all the major brands of televisions and stereo equipment at prices you can't find in stores. And we come to you. There's no need to leave your home to find great pricing and incomparable service. No traffic, inexperienced sales geeks, or pushy showroom tactics. We believe in having some fun and dreaming big. Do you have a dream for your home entertainment? Let us know. We can make it come true. And we are always there to help after the job is done. We cultivate clients for a lifetime by treating everyone like their family. No, not those family members. I'm talking about the ones you actually like. So relax, hug your kids, make love to your wife, and smile. Then, when you have a moment, give us a call at 255-8678. That's 512-255-8678 or online at avconsultations.com.
Back here on Open Gym on Texas Sports Unfiltered, myself, Patrick Davis, alongside with Matt Galatzan from Texas Longhorns on SI. We told you we'd get to your comments. If you guys got anything to throw in there, Cesaro asked if would Scatabo would be available, I'm guessing, for the Cowboys in the second round. And, yeah, he would be available in the second round. He might be available in the third. So, but yeah, he'd definitely be available in the second if that's a guy you want to go with. I don't like Cam Scatabo is a really interesting guy in the draft because he's tough, he's going to work hard, all these things. But you're like, is he really going to be the culture fit is he going to understand that at Arizona State he was the team, like he was the guy, and in the NFL you're a good player but you're not the team. And so are you going to be okay with that? And maybe he is. I don't know him personally, so I can't tell you if this is all somewhat of an act, but he is aggressive, let's just say the least, about what he wants to do in these games. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up, if he's able to go. And that could be a Jerry guy. Like, that could be a Jerry. He goes, he's going to talk all day long. He's going to stay in the news. That's what I want. I love my Cowboys to be in the news. So he could be a Jerry guy very easily, but I would assume that would be more Cam Scatabo falling to him than him getting him, would be my guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, so he seems like as we know, as you just pointed out, Jerry loves his headlines. So we know that Jerry was all in on Johnny Manziel before he was talked out of it for Zach Martin. We know how Micah Parsons is. We know the history of Cowboys players who like to talk. So he absolutely fits into that mold. I think that Cam Scatabo is a tremendous, tremendous football player. He is a lot of fun to watch. What is not fun as a football fan is sitting there watching him talk and say all these ridiculous things about, I don't get any respect. I'm the best running back in the country, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're certainly up there. But the other guy over there is close to breaking all these records, and he's getting invited to the Heisman ceremony. We only have room for one running back, and he's it. So deal with it. All this Arizona State just liked to talk in general, which was maybe their downfall at the end, but that's another story entirely. In terms of NFL stories, I think he fits tremendously with the Cowboys. It would be Jerry Jones's dream. So yes, yeah, absolutely.
But I just don't know if he ends up taking him at the number in the second round. Doesn't go there and says, I know he'll be there in the second, so we'll just take him there. Or if he tries to play his luck and say, if he's there in the third, we'll take him, because then he's going to be super pissed off. Even better, we'll take the Hornets' nest in the third round, who believes that he should have been a first round pick. So it'll be interesting. We see there. We'll see. Roy says, if I may tell him anything, can Nike design shorts that have a lower rise so the players don't have to fold them down at the waist? I thought Nike would have fixed this like 20 years ago. Yeah, I don't know the fashion of it all. And it feels like whatever you're going to give the players, they're not going to go. But I think it also goes into basketball players are built really, really weird. And
they're pretty tall.
They're really tall. So a lot of the times you get clothes that are designed weirdly because the same like build of a player can be anything from 5'11" to 6'8" now. So you get, they're trying to make those shorts somewhat fit everybody. So they're short on a 6'8" guy, but then if the 6'2" guy's wearing them, he's going to roll them up because they're also fit a 6'8" guy. So that's why they're like that. Is I'm sure at some point Nike, if you had, Oregon probably has pants or shorts that fit great, but the rest of the league, the rest of college basketball may not have that. But that's my reality of it. You go ahead, Matt.
I just hope that they don't go back to the way it was in the early 2000s with like TJ Ford and all that stuff, where they're like hanging down past the knees. Oh man. I mean, look, when I was growing up, I love that look. I went to an SB basketball camp when I was younger, and my shorts that I got were hanging down way past my knees. That was the look back then. But looking back, it's a little ridiculous. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure they'll figure something out eventually.
No, we all had the really long shorts. I'm lucky. I don't think I ever had the really short shorts that are really popular now that fall into the category which I don't think enough people sit down in clothes before they wear them outside. You see kids wear these really short shorts and they sit down and you're like, they look like underwear now. They're just, and that's fine if you want to do that, but most of us prefer not to see that much of your leg. If I'm sitting next to you at a basketball game and we're like right next to each other in seats, I can see your hip. That's probably not a good thing. I'm saying.
Yeah. I was in the gym recently and I saw a guy wearing like yoga shorts.
Yeah.
So I really hope it doesn't come to that either.
No,
Like
I don't want to see that either.
You know how girls wear like the yoga pants? It's like shorts version of that, but for guys. So I really hope that doesn't take off.
Why? Come on, people at the gym. I was at the gym this morning. I can't. Some of the people really just trying for attention out there. This is not the place. Can we all just pretend that no one else exists and then be courteous to each other? But don't be trying to wear that outfit and then wear an outfit. And then when someone looks over at you, be like, what are you looking at? Like, clearly you tried to do this. It's like the person who wears a bird to the bar. It has a pet snake with them. And they're like, oh yeah, you mean my pet snake? Yes, I mean your pet snake. Why is there a pet snake at the bar? I'm not a fan of those. That outfit of trying to dress. If your outfit is your personality, I might not be your best friend. That is my general thesis on that. Let's talk some Texas basketball. I did want to mention real quick that Hubert Davis over at North Carolina, we talked about a lot on the show of Texas. If they're looking for a new coach, that if North Carolina says they're done with Hubert Davis, it's going to be a problem. They've won 4 straight games, and apparently that's enough. They have now brought in a general manager who is a former NBA agent that has been around for a long time. He'll be the new general manager of the North Carolina Tar Heels, and they reached a contract extension with Hubert Davis. They went the other direction, say that we believe in you and we're going to go forward. So North Carolina will not be looking for a coach. There's 2 ways to take this. If you're Texas, one is great news for us that that you're not going to have to worry about a bigger program trying to come in and get your coach, steal a coach away from you, or basically steal away a coaching hire away from you. However, on the flip of that, it also means they probably didn't see much out there in the coaching market that they were really interested in.
Yeah, this is a thing for Texas where the last program that you want to compete against for a head coach on the open market is North Carolina. Maybe Kentucky is up there too. I mean, and Duke is up there, but those are programs that you definitely do not want to be competing against for a head coach. And if it's any kind of signal to me, it's like you said, we didn't really see anybody out there, and maybe even next year, we're not going to see anybody out there who we feel is a better fit for us than Hubert Davis, and it's going to take us to the next level. So let's just stick with this for a little bit. And I think that's kind of an indicator on what might happen at Texas. I know not everybody's going to want to hear it. Even if Rodney Terry, doesn't get them to the tournament or whatever, this sort of signifies to me that, maybe it's just going to be one of those off seasons where, there's a couple of coaching moves here and there, but the bigger programs like North Carolina, Texas and all of these schools are like, we're just going to stick with our guy. We're going to stick with our guy for now. We're going to see how it goes, and we'll kick the can down the road until we find a surefire guy that we're comfortable with.
Yeah. And I mean, you can tell the Dwayne Akina, how quickly that hire happened. There's always things happening behind the scenes. There's always conversations and feelers being put out and who is somebody and may they be interested. And all of those pieces are probably happening behind the scenes right now, right? Talking to people, is this somebody that may want to come in? So their due diligence is being done right now, but there's 2 parts of that. It's a dual-edged sword right there for Texas. Good that North Carolina is probably not hiring anybody, but it could shadow that there just isn't necessarily that coaching market available right now. I have seen some pieces, people talking about it too, that really Texas is the team to trigger the coaching carousel this year. That most people are looking at Texas, that there's not going to be a ton of open jobs that are really going to shift things a ton. So this is going to be, if Texas lets go Rodney Terry, that opens up whoever they hire, and then the next, and the dominoes fall and the carousel starts rolling. So that's what we're looking at there. If you look over at Joe Lunardi, who's been the bracketologist of most note over the last several years, he still has Texas in the tournament. He still has Texas not even playing in the first 4. He has them as an 11 seed. They moved down as an 11 seed. They are now playing St. Mary's in the East bracket in his, which that is not always correct. That's a little bit more, once you get down to 10 and 11 and those seeds, those may go wherever they go. But in his ranking, he has Texas still in there, and he has North Carolina still out. But this really falls in that being in the SEC and those SEC wins that they've gotten and hopefully we'll get tomorrow is going to be another big one. Tomorrow's show, we'll talk a lot about Arkansas and that game and how hostile that environment is going to be on Wednesday. It is not going to be a fun game, and there's a lot to get into about that. We'll save that for tomorrow. But this is a Texas team that really, we thought that South Carolina game was the death knell for Texas this season. We thought it was for Rodney Terry, and Joe Lunardi not feeling that at all, keeping Texas still in there. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you do that if you're Joe Lunardi. I don't know if he missed it, but it feels like it really just is. The SEC is so good at basketball, we're not going to devalue. We're going to put this many SEC teams in, and right now, Texas is hanging on being the lowest SEC team.
I think it might come back a little bit to a couple of different things. One being, maybe Joe Lunardi thinks that the tournament committee is going to want to have as much star power as they could possibly have in this tournament. So having a guy like Trey Johnson who's going to draw viewers is a big deal. Or maybe it goes back to kind of what you said last week, where it's just the name Texas being in the tournament is as long as you can sort of make the case that, they did this, that, and the other to squeak in, that the tournament committee is going to want to keep them in as much as they possibly can because it's going to draw viewership. I kind of lean towards the latter with the name Texas being in the tournament, but if they are certainly trotting a fine line right now, because if you can't get the win at Arkansas and you drop 2 of these next 3 or whatever, which it seems to be the way that they're trending with the way that they're playing, it just becomes increasingly harder and harder to see them make the tournament. Whereas a team like North Carolina, who's extremely hot right now, winning 4 straight, going, playing their best basketball right now, they sort of feel like a team who, if the tournament committee's like, well, there's a big name that we could replace Texas with if they keep winning, and that's North Carolina, and that's certainly an option.
No, I like the Trey Johnson, Paul, too, is you want to have those guys that are going to the NBA and top picks. You'd like to have them in the tournament as well. So I think that can be part of it as well. He also has Oklahoma and Arkansas in the last 4 in, so 2 more SEC teams creeping in. But that Arkansas, they're right behind Texas, which is kind of weird that they put them right behind. But they have Arkansas right behind Texas. So, again, if you're able to win and maybe put a little distance between those 2 schools, if you're deciding you split the season series with them, you're able to push away a little bit more that maybe you're looking okay right now and you have the star player. If you can change that trajectory, that would be really big tomorrow. But it's as much as we are doom and gloom here in Austin, and maybe we're right and Lunardi is just missing it, but it does feel like he has consistently thought that Texas is getting into this tournament one way or another and has consistently put them in. It feels like there were several games that I thought, okay, well, this is the one that he had it projected out and then Texas was going to win it. And now that they lost, but you couldn't have had projected that we were going to lose to South Carolina. That's just not in your projection. There's no way he was like, well, they'll lose that and then they'll lose Arkansas and they'll lose this game, but they'll still make it in. It feels like you're really up against the wall right now.
It also really feels to me like Lunardi is very, very passionate about how good the SEC is this year and what that strength of schedule means. Because, I thought one of the funniest things that I've seen some reporters asking some of these coaches at press conferences is like, well, the SEC is only 500 in conference play. It's like, it's because it's the best, literally the best league of all time historically. So that has to be
every conference is 500 in conference play. Every conference
exactly.
That's how conference play works.
That's how math works.
That's how math works. Which is that has been mentioned a few times about how great they are because there's no division because they're 500. You're like, Yeah, but that means that the teams, if you literally had 6 teams that won every game and 6 teams that lost every game, they're still 500. It's the way it works. There
Exactly.
is. I know it's but yeah, it was funny. I can't remember which announcer said that during a Texas game, and it was like a stat that got someone put online as a joke, and it got picked up and has just been run with. And so yeah, now you're looking at, but if you're saying that division or that conference could possibly put in what 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 teams is what he's got right now going in. That's a lot of teams to put into. So if you're Texas and you think that at least 12 are going to get in, you just got to be in the top 12 teams in the SEC. That SEC tournament is huge because you can get another big win in that one to help out your bracket. But yeah, if people are thinking like Lunardi is that this could be a really big move for the SEC, that they're going to be the conference to look at this year. Kansas not having the season that they wanted to have really hurts the Big 12. Houston had another big game last night, but yeah, when you lose Kansas out of that, it kind of feels like it's a down year for them. The ACC has Duke playing really well, but North Carolina's down. So all these conferences may not be at the peak power that they feel they're normally at. Whereas SEC, they're selling it, and the ESPN has at least bought into the SEC hype. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's really hard not to. It's unbelievable what this conference has done over the last couple of months. I mean, the amount of good teams, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, people used to talk about the ACC back in the day when it was at the height of its power in college basketball. This is an entirely different animal. The thing for me with Texas is this Arkansas game and this Oklahoma game, considering how close they are in Lunardi's rankings, which if there's a guy who knows what's going to happen in the NCAA tournament, it's him. Yeah. But if you drop this Arkansas game and you lose to Oklahoma again, but I mean, now you're in real trouble. Yeah, but now we're talking about you're going to win one more game, pretty much. But like you can't. I don't think you can lose both of those. Like if you have to use the 2 games of those 3 or like one of those 3 games that you have to win, it has to be either Arkansas or it has to be Oklahoma. Oh, yeah. Preferably both. Otherwise, you're going to be in real trouble. No, I agree with you on that one. Let's we have a couple minutes left. You want to throw in the chat to hang out with us if you're still hanging out with us on a Tuesday afternoon. I do want to get a little bit into a fun game to watch. It's a late game tonight at 9:00 that it'll be on TNT with Luka in his Lakers uniform playing the Mavs. It's in LA, so we will not get the craziness that will be the Lakers in Dallas, which I feel like half the fans are going to cheer for LA just to spite this ownership at this point. But this feels like it could be a really fun game to watch, but it's going to be early on. Is Luka going to go off and have a historic game tonight? We know Dwight Powell, PJ Washington are game time decisions now. Anthony Davis and Daniel Gafford are still out, but you could get back a center in Dwight Powell. I know that's not the most sexy thing. PJ Washington, of course, that's an actual good player you can get back. I believe the Lakers are 9.5-point favorites. It's probably not going to be a close game, but this is let's see what Luka does. And does Luka let off on anybody on that Mavs bench? I don't think it's the players. I don't think he hates it. I don't think he has any problem with the players, but the bench maybe. I wonder if Nico Harrison's going to be in attendance because I feel like if he was, every time Luka makes a shot, he's just going to glare over at Nico and be like, "What?" He can't glare. He's going to be hanging out in Rob Pelinka's office, filling out his job application. Probably. Listen, I have thought about this. My girlfriend asked me about it earlier. A couple of my friends asked me about it earlier. I used to do a Mavericks podcast back in the day with my friend Dalton Trigg, who's probably the biggest Mavs fan that I know. And we were arguing about it earlier today. Like, he's really torn because he doesn't know who to cheer for. He loves Luka, but he's a lifelong Mavs fan. And I'm just like, hey, man, listen, you have to – this is one game. And the Mavericks have to face some karma. They just have to. They cannot get away with this at any point. Realistically, they have to face some karma. So the basketball gods are going to say, look,
We want Luka to have an absolutely historic, record-breaking, league-shattering night. For me personally, what I would love to see is for Luka to break. He's not going to get 100 like Wilt, but I would love to see him break Kobe's record for points at the Staples Center, like 80, whatever it is. I think that he is certainly capable of doing that. I think he's the best perimeter offensive player on the planet. I think he knows the Mavericks defense better than anybody. Certainly they know him as well, so that's going to play a factor too. But I also saw a report. I can't remember who put it out, so apologies in advance for that. But a player inside the Lakers organization or a coach or some sort of staff member said to an NBA reporter that the Mavericks have awakened a beast in Luka, and he is extremely motivated going into this game and throughout the rest of his career. They awakened a beast. And if the beast was not already awakened in a talent like that, the fact that it is now is sort of terrifying, especially if you're Jason Kidd and Nico Harrison and you're putting out a roster that's really hobbled, and you're counting on Dwight Powell being a difference maker when he's just he's the one player who is still on the Mavericks roster from a decade ago. I don't know. If I'm the Mavericks and I'm a Mavericks fan who's cheering against Luka tonight, I'm very scared. Very, very scared.
No, it seems like it's going to be an interesting game. There was also the Mark Spears report that Jaylen Brown was the reason that Luka got traded. We got the 20th reason now that doesn't make any damn sense. That 20th time that we've heard something. Oh, no, Jaylen Brown played against him well for a couple games in the finals that he took you to. So he's a bad player now, so we got to get rid of him.
I have one comment about that. If that's true, which I don't believe that's true for a second, but if that's true, that being the reason that you trade away Luka is historically the dumbest decision in the history of the NBA. Are you sitting here telling me that no player has ever had one bad matchup in the finals and didn't go on to have a great career? I mean, it's happened to LeBron James.
No, I know.
The Heat didn't bail on LeBron.
No, Akeem Olajuwon had a great series against David Robinson. The Spurs were going to move him immediately.
Oh yeah, totally.
Akeem Olajuwon owned him, so we get rid of David. What's he done for this city?
I don't have anything against Mark Spears. I think he's a tremendously good NBA reporter. But for him to put that out, I think that is the dumbest thing I have heard since I was sitting in a bed at 11 o'clock on a Friday or Saturday night, whenever the night was, and I saw Luka Doncic traded for Anthony Davis. That is the second dumbest thing that I've heard in the last month and a half or whatever it is.
Oh yeah, it's bad. So are you going to end up watching this game tonight?
I have to. I thought I wasn't going to. I have to. I have to see what he does. You know what I'm going to do, Patrick? You know what I'm going to do, Patrick, is I'm going to wear my Luka Doncic Slovenia jersey.
You're just going to play neutral kind of. Yeah,
no, I just don't have any Lakers gear. Otherwise, I wear a Lakers jersey.
But this is the thing. It doesn't matter in this one. You can root for the Mavs in this one. No one, unless you got Nico Harrison bugging your house and the Adelsons bugging your house, you can do whatever you want. It's the one that in Dallas where it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. It's going to be hilarious and fun to watch. But it's going to be bad. So I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to it. Other NBA news I'll throw out there. Greg Popovich has been shut down for the season now. That is another one that came out today that Greg Popovich will not be returning, which I think after the Wemby news went down, that was pretty much I don't think anybody thought he was coming back for the last 20 games to coach. I mean, hopefully he'll get better and he'll be able to work with Stephon Castle and them in the offseason and De'Aaron Fox. But yeah, as of right now, and this is the reality, even when Pop steps down, I assume he's going to be at the facility almost all the time.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
He'll still be around.
Give the guy some time to recover. He's earned it.
Yeah. I mean, he's the longest and winningest coach of all time and still trying to add some more wins to that. Hopefully at one point, you have a real winning season again. That'd be nice to see. before he retires. But the Spurs are taking on the Celtics at 7 o'clock. You also get Texas baseball coming up here in a little bit. I believe it's 6:30. Jason Flores getting that start. The weather looks like it's going to be beautiful for it. So if you're headed out to that game, enjoy yourself for some Texas baseball. That'll be a fun one. We'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow. A whole lot about Texas basketball tomorrow. I'm sure we'll get more Texas football news as well. Hopefully the coaching staff is officially set now. Hopefully that's done and dusted, but we'll get into whatever other news as we get ready for the combine, talking about Texas players. We'll see what else comes out as we get back into it tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on Texas Sports Unfiltered. It's Open Gym with myself and Matt Galatzan. And for myself and Matt Galatzan, appreciate you again. Have another great show there, Matt. We will say goodbye for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Hope you come back and join us. But until then, be kind, be safe, keep your underwear clean, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow, 4 p.m. for more from Open Gym.